They have not done too hot. They have really struggled in this exact situation. Now, forget about, 2011, 2012, because the only people on that team, I think in 2012, that are still on the team now are Rene and Roman Yossi. Hal Gill was on that team. He's going to be on the show later today. So forget about that. Let's start with 2016, because I know they went in 2015, but they were still young, and Johansson wasn't here yet, and things of that nature. So the core group, Johansson, Forsberg, Ellis, Ekholm, Yossi, Rene, that group. This core group, they have been, starting in 2016, in this exact scenario 5 times. And I'm not counting last year when it was tied 1-1 going to Game 3 against Arizona and a best-of-5, because that was the crazy kooky bubble, so let's just forget about that right now. 2016, Anaheim, first round. Anaheim was the 2 seed, Preds were the 7 seed. They were tied 2-2. They lost Game 5 by a final of 5-2, but they ended up winning the series. Now, that's important because they really haven't, they struggle with that for the most part. San Jose, 2016, tied 2-2. They lost Game 5, 5-1 on the road. San Jose just absolutely blitzed them in the second period as it was 2-1 after 1, 4-1 after 2, back to Nashville for Game 6. They ended up losing in 7. They lost that series. 2017, exact same scenario. Western Conference Final, tied at 2 against Anaheim. Mike Fisher out with a concussion. Ryan Johansson out for the rest of the playoffs with compartment syndrome. Predators win the game on the road in Anaheim, a game that nobody expected them to win. They ended up winning Game 6 and that series despite getting totally outplayed in both games and outshot by the Anaheim Ducks. They ended up going on to the Stanley Cup Final. So when they won Game 5, they won that series. Pittsburgh tied 2-2 on the road at Pittsburgh. Lost 6-0. And remember, everybody was feeling, after they won Games 3 and 4 here in Nashville, everybody was feeling like, hey, get the cup parades ready, get everything figured out. They're going on to go win the cup. And I certainly felt that way too. They lost Game 5 6-0. Pittsburgh scored a minute 31 into the game, led 3-0 after 1. Saros got put in the game. Pittsburgh led 6-0 after 2, and that was the final score. Winnipeg, series tied 2-2. Preds won Game 4 in Winnipeg. They lost Game 5 6-2. The Predators were tied after 1. Winnipeg scored 4 times in the second, and then they scored again in the third, 28 seconds in. Mark Scheifele, Rene taken out of the game. They lost 6-2. Lost the series in 7. 2019, tied with Dallas 2-2. Game 5 in Nashville. They lost 5-3. Dallas at one point scored 4 out of 5 goals. So when they don't win Game 5 in these scenarios, they've won that series 1 time. The Anaheim series tied at 2. In the Western Conference Final in 2017, they won. And everything else, they've gotten their butts beaten in Game 5. And when they get their butts beaten in Game 5, they lose the series. Which means that tonight is the night. And I'm not looking back at history and saying, well, they didn't beat Pittsburgh in 2017 because in that Game 5, they didn't show up to play, so they've got no chance in this game tonight. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as a history guy, they have to win tonight. I think tonight is an absolute must-win. You lose tonight, you lose the series. I'm not willing to say if they win tonight that they will win the series, but I do believe if they do win, and I talked about, still a 20% chance of winning this series, I think if you win tonight, it goes to about 60%. I mean, this is the swing game. Even if you take 2 teams that aren't so on paper unevenly matched, where we look at Carolina, or I should say other people look at Carolina as if they're a true cup contender over here, and the Predators were a team that got hot and were lucky to make it in over here, and that they're not on the same level. If that's the case, you're still going to probably lean a little bit more towards Carolina. My guess is that if the 2 teams were evenly matched, the winner of tonight's game, you'd give a 75% chance to winning the series. And that's really what it comes down to. And so then you got to give Carolina a little bit more because, again, on paper, they are supposedly the better team. So I'm not saying they can't do it tonight. I'm going to say the odds are not in their favor. Carolina does not lose at home. And as much as we pumped up the Bridgestone Arena crowd yesterday for the effort that they gave that team on Friday and Sunday, Carolina's crowd was doing a lot in games 1 and 2. I am very concerned about today's game. But I will say this. This is your moment of truth. You all told me when they didn't sell at the trade deadline to believe in the group. Say, hey, anything can happen in playoff hockey. And you are right. Anything can happen in playoff hockey. They got to the playoffs. Now is the moment of truth. Can they steal the game they have to steal tonight? I'm telling you, if they lose tonight, I think they lose Thursday night and the series is over in 6. If they win tonight, I still am not going to say they're going to win the series, but I told you, I think 60-65% chance that they win the series if they take tonight. And again, I have just too many times gotten my hopes up after emotional Predator wins to tie series, go back on the road to San Jose, go back on the road to Pittsburgh, come back at home against Winnipeg, and the Predators have gotten their rear ends kicked in those games. 5-1 to San Jose, 6-0 to Pittsburgh, 6-2 to Winnipeg, 5-3 to Dallas. I am very cautious about that. I'm not saying that those games have anything to do with this game, but it makes me nervous. I am very nervous about tonight's game. I think we all should be very nervous about tonight's game. I think that we know the Carolina Hurricanes are going to give you their best shot because I feel like they believe in their own room, we got to win at home. And if we don't win at home, we don't want to go back to Bridgestone Arena facing elimination. So again, tonight's the moment of truth. This team can win at home, but can they go on the road and take down a division opponent that has lost, I believe, in regulation 3 times at home this season, that has a great and raucous crowd atmosphere, that has played much better than you on their home ice than you have played against them on your home ice. You've got to win in double overtime. They're knocking you out in regulation. Can you do it? And just so we're clear, what John Hines said after game 2, I think our power play was a mess, but we played okay 5-on-5. That does not cut it today. That does not work. We played well. No, sir. Today there is one option. It is to win. Game 5 tonight. 615-737-1025. Let's get your reactions. Your thoughts on game number 5. And again, I'm not telling you they can't do it because I think they can do it. I'm not telling you they will do it because I don't think they will do it or I don't know if they'll do it. But how do you feel about tonight's game? 615-737-1025. Again, like yesterday, we'll go to calls, then we'll go to texts. How do you feel? And I will tell you how I feel about tonight's game. I will tell you that because I told you guys on Friday right at the jump, I said I think they're going to win. I will tell you how I feel next. 615-737-1025. Ian and Caroline will give their reaction as well. Again, we are all hands on deck. Game number 5 is tonight between the Predators and the Hurricanes. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Get in for calls and texts. Stillman Company, we are live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. We are streaming on Twitter, YouTube. I've told people, hey, you want to watch the show, just go to YouTube and just put in Stillman & Company, and that first thing that comes up will be the show, and you can just stream it like I do every morning watching Robbie and Rexroad on TV. You can just, boom, right in there. So go ahead and do that. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Hi, John. So we all saw how much the home fans in Bridgestone Arena helped fuel the team, especially in those long overtimes. So how difficult is it to prepare guys for the change in environment from home playoff game to road playoff game? Do you encourage them to, engage with that and be fueled by it, even if it's on the road?
Well, I think that it is a benefit for us that we've actually been here, with the first two games, and it is a factor in this series. When you look at what's going on in Bridgestone is unbelievable, and here, I mean, there's a lot of fans. It's loud. Teams get energy from it. But this is the best. This is the best part. You're coming in Game 5 on the road. We haven't won a game here. If you're going to give yourself a chance to win the series, this is the best thing. You're coming in. It's a big game. There's going to be a raucous crowd, and this is what we talk about even with them. Play not with each other. You got to be able to play for each other, and great challenge for us. Excited, and it's something that this time of year is, and the benefits that we have fans in the stands now. It just makes it that much more exciting and competitive. So we're looking forward to it.
I love John Hines right there trying to kind of turn an obvious negative about the crowds, which have certainly had a big effect. Home ice has had a big effect in this series, and he's trying to turn it into a positive. And, hey, this is the exciting time, and I'm so glad to have fans back. And this is the exciting time. We got to meet the challenge, and their crowd's been raucous, and And I used to always, when I worked at women's basketball at Carolina, and we would play on the road, and, most teams didn't really draw much for women's basketball. We'd play at Connecticut, or we'd play at North Carolina, or we'd play at LSU, or we'd play at Tennessee, or we'd play one of those teams that draw a lot of fans. I used to always be one of the best feelings as a team. We went to Notre Dame one time, and we went in there and stole a victory at the end. And the idea of having a packed building and just shutting everybody in the building up is one of the most fun feelings. And when you go into a building like that where it is just roaring and you shut them up early and you can feel the panic from the fans, that is always, I think that's one of the best feelings in all of sports. And I can only imagine what it would be like to go into Carolina and for the Predators to go up 2-0, maybe in the first or second period, and really quiet that crowd down. I'm not banking on it, but I'm just saying the ability to do that I think would be pretty cool. Now, how do we feel about tonight's game? Because I feel like for almost every game in this series, I've been able to tell you guys how I feel going into the game. I said 2 o'clock Friday, they're going to win Game 3. They feel like they're going to win Game 3. I felt very comfortable thinking they weren't going to win Game 1 when I heard that they were going to put Olivier and Jeannot in the lineup at the same time. I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. Game 2, I didn't feel like they'd be able to pull that one out. And then I started on Sunday morning, I started to feel like, I think they're going to do it. And I tweeted out, I thought the Predators were going to win 2-1. I thought Saros was going to steal it. I was right that they were going to win. I was right that he stole it. I just was wrong about the final score. I don't know how I feel. My heart and my gut say Predators tonight. My head says it's really hard to win in Carolina. They increased fan capacity right before the playoffs. Clearly, home ice is making a difference in this series. I think Jacob Slavin probably is going to play for Carolina, which you talk to anybody connected with Carolina, and all they do is tell you how great Jacob Slavin is. I think he's going to play. My head says Canes win this game. And I think the winner of tonight's game wins the series. I think tonight is a must-win for the Predators. You hear John Hines talk about how excited he is for the challenge. And I think I'm excited to see the challenge the Predators face. I'm excited to see, can they handle this challenge? Can they go in there and tame the beast? And Carolina certainly hasn't looked the part of superstar team, but at the same time, we know they're really good. We know they're really hard to beat there. My head says Carolina. I guess I'll make my official prediction later on in the show. I think I'm leaning, though, towards Carolina today, whereas I do feel the momentum and the energy that the Predators have taken with Game 4 after a great weekend. How do you guys feel right now about tonight's game?
So, you have those in sports or in coaching, you have those intangibles and the tangibles and the things that, the things that you just can't coach. Dedication, perseverance, just the will and the drive to want to do well. I think that the Predators have those intangible things. They have the momentum. They have this team rally around kind of feeling, and they're coming off of 2 wins that took a lot to win, a lot of time and a lot of effort to win. So I think that they have those kind of, exciting, intangible things going on. But I think everything for the Canes, everything that has me leaning a little bit more in their corner are those tangible things. The fact that the Predators have not been able to win a game in Raleigh all year. The fact that the Predators did win 2, and I do not want to discredit them at all because they did look good in those 2 games, some at times better than others. But it took 2 double overtimes to win against Carolina.
And they have a better team.
And Bridgestone. And just on paper, if you're looking at it on paper, yes, Carolina has a better team. So while I want to follow my heart and say, the Predators have all these exciting things going in their favor, they're just the cold, hard facts that are holding me back.
So this is where you are pushing me more towards Carolina, because you talked about those non-tangible things, the momentum and the energy and the team rallying around. And I just spent a whole segment telling you they did the same thing in 2016 against San Jose. They won in double overtime. Mike Fisher, we all remember, against San Jose at like 1:30 in the morning, and they won Game 4 to go to San Jose and get their butts kicked. And they beat Pittsburgh. They smoked them in Game 3. They beat them in Game 4, and they lost 6-0 in the Cup final. Like that momentum. They lost Game 4 in the Western Conference Final that year to Anaheim, lost Mike Fisher, lost Ryan Johansson, and we're sitting there thinking there is no way that this team's going to get off the mat in Anaheim, and they did. And so I am sitting here saying, like, when you talk about, the thing I like about the Predators is they've got the tangible things going for them. That makes me a little nervous. Ian, what do you think? How are you feeling about today's game?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, these past 2 games, have been pretty even. And I don't know, part of me feels like, who's more prone for a letdown? I know there's not really a whole lot of letdowns in the playoffs, and the teams kind of bring it. But after some emotional games, some taxing games, is there a team more prone for a letdown? Part of me feels like coming off of 2 wins, the Preds could be more prone for a letdown, even though both teams know how desperate it is. I wonder if Carolina coming back home is going to be able to ramp it up, maybe another half a notch. It kind of feels like if the Preds are going to pull this one out, Saros might have to steal this one.
Yep, which is exactly what Rinne did in Game 5 of that Anaheim series. The one in 2017 where, again, they had lost Game 4 in overtime. Fisher was hurt. Johansson was hurt. All of a sudden, Freddie Gaudreau is in the lineup. We'd never heard of this guy. And they end up getting a goal from Pontus Aberg and a goal from Colin Wilson, and Pekka Rinne stole Game 5. And that may be what has to happen with Saros tonight. Ian brought up the letdown factor. Am I wrong? And again, I think sometimes people will interpret what I say as like a negative slant because it's not. It'd be very easy, as a local radio host, it'd be very easy just to go on the air and be like, well, they've got all the momentum. They're playing great as a team. Johansson and Duchesne are doing their thing. Ellis with Ekholm is much better. Carrier looks great. I mean, it'd be very easy to do that. I don't do that. So I try to, analyze it. And Ian brought up the letdown game. The Predators in the playoffs have been prone for the Game 5 letdowns. And I think when I go back to these Game 5s, whether it was at San Jose in 2016 or the 2 that were real letdowns, I mean, like where I really felt like, damn. Pittsburgh in the Cup final. You had all the momentum in the world, and Pittsburgh scored literally 1 minute and 31 seconds into the game. And it was like all that hard work right in the toilet to get back into the series because they just crushed you in Game 5 at Pittsburgh. And the other one was Winnipeg at home because that was a nail-biting tooth and nail series, and all of a sudden the Jets walk into Bridgestone Arena, which nobody had won in, and this is why they had fought so hard for home ice that year, and the Jets roll in and just smoke them. And that was where I was like, okay, this is not a good feeling for the Predators. This is not. And I do wonder, going back to those letdowns, do we forget about them because Laviolette was the coach of that team and Rinne was the goalie of that team? And Peter ain't coaching and Pekka ain't goalieing tonight. So do we kind of let that go? And that's an open-ended question. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Plus, should we feel like the Predators are going to win, or do we still feel that massive underdog level scale? Because I'm telling you, there's one way everybody else thinks you should feel. We'll get to that coming up next. Plus, I asked John Hines about Rod Brindamore working the refs. Does Hines have a message he wants to get out for the refs? We'll get to that coming up as well. You know what season it is? That's right. It's moving season, not just playoff season. It's moving season. My Official Movers, TriStar Moving, can help you at ease. I know this because at TriStar Moving, you'll get 5-star service throughout the entire process. Everything will be taken care of, from covering your floors and banisters, railings, your front door thresholds, even wrapping and protecting all of your furniture and putting your TVs in protected boxes. I know this because I use TriStar Moving, and when I use TriStar Moving, I'll be honest, I got 6-star service. They were so great. I know they say 5-star service. I got 6-star service. They were fantastic. They made it as stress-free as possible. They have a brand new TriStar Moving facility, storage facility out in Mount Juliet. So if you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar Moving a call. 615-640-1219, or visit their website, nashvillemoving.org/radio, where they'll give you 5% off your entire move. That's TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, or visit them at nashvillemoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you. TriStar Moving, my Official Movers.
Jacob Slavin, he is a perennial Norris Trophy type of player, candidate rather. And considering the fact that they've played 2 double overtime games in a row, and they went from playing on Friday night and then Sunday afternoon, so not a lot of time to recuperate. I don't have the ice time in front of me, but I imagine Dougie Hamilton and Brent Pesce were playing close to 40 minutes in each of those games. Jacob Slavin is a big minute defenseman, and he hasn't played since game 1. So if after playing 2 double overtime games and taxing your top defenseman, getting a fresh Jacob Slavin back could be a game changer. I mean, he's a great defenseman, and they certainly missed him, especially in these past 2 games. So if they can get him back in the lineup tomorrow, that's a huge get for the Hurricanes.
Jacob Slavin has missed game 2. He missed game 3. He missed game 4. And now, according to Sarah Sivian, who covers the team for The Athletic, he is a game-time decision, but he was on the ice this morning for morning skate. I have no idea what's wrong with Jacob Slavin. I know this. He is considered to be one of the better defensive defensemen in the NHL. And I will also say this. The Predators do not need the Carolina Hurricanes getting any better players in this series. In fact, if they wanted to have some good players get hurt, I don't root for injuries, but I'd root for that other than them getting good players to come back. But I think Slavin plays tonight. And I brought this up yesterday in which I said that when Rod Brindamore said after Game 4, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, and if you take him off of any team, you'll see what happens. I don't think a coach says that if he doesn't expect somebody to come back. I think a coach says that when he is looking for that guy to come back in and be the savior. Now, I don't know what his injury is, but it seems like something where they really don't want to play him. So they play him in Game 1. They get the advantage in the series. Then after they play him in Game 1 and they get the advantage in the series, he then misses the next 3 games while they still have the advantage. Now comes Game 5 where they don't have an advantage, and I think he's going to play. Something's up. It's something like an ankle sprain, like a really bad sprain, or it's not a torn something, but it's bad, and whatever it is can get worse by him playing. And I think they're hoping to keep him out of the lineup until they play Tampa Bay. I think their hope was, let's knock Nashville out in 4 or 5 games. He plays Game 1. We take the lead. We go up 3-0. We lose Game 4. We come back Game 5. Fine. I don't think they want to play him, but I think they're going to play him tonight. And you'd have to ask somebody who knows more about the Carolina Hurricanes about how big of a deal that is. But I think Adam Vingan, in that clip we just played, kind of says, hey, they've been using Brent Pesce a lot. They've been using Dougie Hamilton a lot. They are taxing those guys. John Hines has gone out of his way to not tax Roman Josi or Matthias Ekholm or Ryan Ellis or Alex Carrier at that level, although that does mean more Ben Harper, and you know how I feel about that. But I think Slavin goes tonight, and I think that's a big get for the Carolina Hurricanes.
I agree with you, and I think games 3 and 4 were so even. Obviously, they both went into double overtime, so you're going to be playing pretty head-to-head if it takes that long to eventually get a win. And the Predators, they ended up with wins. But I think adding Jacob Slavin into the Hurricanes roster is going to knock them past that even point. Because without him, the Predators could play against the Carolina Hurricanes. They could keep up and they could win.
Well, let's go
I
back.
think Jacob Slavin
let's
is the
go back
difference.
to all that happy talk after Game 2 that we didn't buy. But there wasn't that happy talk after Game 1. Now, Hines, he tried with, hey, it was 2-2 after 2 going to the third period. That was kind of his, it wasn't that bad, sky's not falling kind of take. But it wasn't I thought we played pretty well, or I thought we outplayed them, that kind of thing, which I feel like I heard a lot of after Game 2. So the only game where everybody unequivocally says the Carolina Hurricanes were better than the Nashville Predators was Game 1. And that was the game that Slavin played. Mm-hmm. Slavin didn't play Game 2, and you got people saying the Predators outplayed Carolina. Slavin didn't play Game 3, and the Predators were right there neck and neck and won. Didn't play Game 4, right there neck and neck and won. This does worry me. So we will keep an eye on Slavin. We will keep an eye on whether or not Slavin plays. Okay, I promised that we would get to your text, 615-737-1025. I feel bad because I feel like I've kind of been ignoring the text line, and I don't want the text line to feel that way over the last couple of days. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caroline Fenton, what's in there?
Ben texted in and said the Predators have to win this series. It's cup or bust since they kept the team together. Could be considered disappointing that it's tied 2-2. And if none of that matters, then we're playing with house money.
So nobody connected with the organization and nobody in the media that covers the team thinks that it is cup or bust with this group. I'm sorry, but getting a Game 6 to Carolina is honestly probably the best. Like if you had told me Game 6, that there will for sure be a Game 6, at the trade deadline, I'd have said, I think you're a little optimistic. I never thought they were going to win a round in the playoffs. At some point, it does have to become house money for this organization with their decision to not go for, to go for it, or to not sell at the trade deadline. Now, again, I still think long term. See, I never valued the idea of winning one round of the playoffs to be worth more than whatever you would have gotten, those second-round picks, third-round picks, whatever you would have gotten for dealing Granlund, Cousins, and Holla. Now, Cousins has obviously been a very big part of this series, but when you're scratching the guy, you think, man, maybe you could have picked up a fourth-round pick for trading him. Maybe it wouldn't have been the end of the world. Again, we can get into that all we want. It's like John Hines, I asked him about before Game 3 about, hey, for some guys on this roster, is this kind of put up or shut up time? Because that was my take on Friday was, hey, this could be the last chance that this group has at it. And they ended up winning those games. So, it's like they extended their life a little bit because I think there would have been massive changes. I still think there should be massive changes. But to Hines' point, he's consistently said, hey, we just got to find a way to win a hockey game. I know there's a lot of talk and we'll do this and that, but we just have to go out and win a hockey game. And I agree with that right now. Again, all the talk about the trade deadline, that can be had after the season. The expansion draft talk, that can be had after the season. Although I feel like the expansion draft talk is really going to just blow my brain into pieces.
Why are you so anti-expansion draft?
Because it's really not complicated, and then it becomes super complicated. I want to say we put it together right after the Stanley Cup was over in 2017. It was like, all right, here's the choice, Neal or Yarncroke. You got one more year at Neal. He's probably a better player than Yarncroke. You've got 5 more years at $2 million apiece for Yarncroke. Neal's going to want $6 or $7 million a year when he goes. Which one do you pick? And I voted Yarncroke because, again, I wanted the cost certainty, the versatility, the age. I just thought it was a better decision to go Yarncroke. That was literally the entire decision. And we probably talked it up 8 ways to Sunday about, well, what about this, or what about that, or what about that, what about that, what about that. And I was just like, oh, my God, it's not that complicated. And so it became either Neal or Yarncroke, and then it ended up being Neal, and he was gone. And for this, I think you told me that they did, the Athletics Seattle Kraken beat writer did a mock draft, and he ended up taking Rocco Grimaldi. Now, again, I looked through the text line last night after the show was over. Apparently, Rocco is a favorite of the text line.
The text line loves Rocco. Almost
Especially.
every single day since the playoffs started, someone or multiple people are asking for Rocco.
So
yeah,
I don't wanna
especially
sound
Adam.
rude.
Adam's got to be blowing that thing up by now.
I don't want to sound rude. Do the fans not realize that Rocco kind of sucks? I promise you, I like Rocco. I do. Rocco plays hard.
Rocco's quick.
Offensively, he's got a little, he's not terrible on your third line, except that that's not an offensive line, and he stinks in his own end. So, it's like the fans, after 2 games, were like, yeah, get Arvidsson out of there. They knew. They was like, okay, Arvidsson's got to go. The fans, for some reason, and fans aren't dumb. Fans are smart. But for some reason, the disconnect between the fans and everybody else on Rocco is like the 9th choice right now to get into the lineup. I see people say, hey, Jared, you think we need more speed? Let's put Rocco in there. And it's like, dude, he's putting Richardson in before he puts Rocco in. He's putting Jeannot in before he puts Rocco in. He's probably going to put Arvidsson back in before he puts Rocco in.
Oh, I would take Rocco over Victor Arvidsson.
To me, it doesn't matter. You're not. Rocco was the Predators' best forward in the 2019 Dallas series, and that said more about the rest of the forwards than it did about Rocco. No disrespect to Rocco. I'm not trying to crap on Rocco, but for some reason I feel like the fans don't realize Rocco kind of stinks. And so when you kind of stink, you shouldn't play. But I don't even know. We got a tangent. What else we got in the text line?
Donovan texted in, the pressure is on Carolina tonight. And I agree, the pressure is on Carolina tonight, but that scares me because I think the Predators play better when the pressure is on them.
I think you're right. I think that's why I don't love doing happy-go-lucky talk, because I do feel like pushing the Predators is what the fans and the media have to do. When you push them, when you tell them they can't do it, when you tell them they won't do it, when you tell them they're not good enough to do it, they find a way to go out there and do it. And there is a part of me that if Jacob Slavin plays tonight that thinks that they are not good enough to go out there and beat the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think that in and of itself may be a good feeling or maybe a good sign or something. It may be good for the idea that this team, again, will have to defy the odds. Just like when they went to Anaheim and they won Game 5 in 2017 in the Western Conference Final and ended up in the Stanley Cup. Now, I worry about, the first 10 minutes of the game because I think Carolina's giving you their best punch out of the gate. Tonight's game scares me. I mean, I've told you all, I think I've been pretty honest. I look at tonight's game, I get nervous. I get very nervous thinking about tonight's game and thinking about that first initial shot Carolina is going to give the Predators. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your Preds texts and your Preds calls, but I do want to get this out. The Julio Jones discussion is now apparently, it's all a part of it. The Julio wore a Cowboys hoodie. Julio told Shannon Sharp that he doesn't want to be in Atlanta anymore. Arthur Smith won't answer any questions. So think of this as a Julio update. Because I keep hearing the Titan fans think that they're going to get Julio, and I've laid out how they can get him, which I don't like to do because, well, we'll get to that too. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Let me tell all the fine folks out there, listen to the game every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. It's the game's 1K payday presented by Kentucky Kingdom and Hurricane Bay. Listen for keywords at 9, noon, and 3. When you hear it, go to thegamenashville.com and enter the keyword for a shot at $1,000. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game, or streaming the Game Nashville app.
Is this realistic here? I mean, do you think it's got a shot, or is this just kind of a pipe dream and a big name that everybody's hoping, in a position of need? I mean, they could use certainly a guy like Julio Jones, but do you think it's realistic or not?
It's somewhat realistic. I don't think it's likely just because, there's so much that has to happen, right? You could push some money forward, right? So that way, down the line, you pay, you don't have to pay, and those type of things. Actually, you pay down the line, as opposed to immediately. So those are some of the things that you could do just to kind of kick the can down the road. But you still have to clear up. I mean, you got to clear up around like $15 million. And that's in addition to the reserve that the Titans like to have just in case something should happen like it did in training camp a couple of years ago when they had to go out and sign Kenny Vaccaro when Jonathan Cyprien went down. So it will require a lot of money to be freed up. I've seen where, Rashaan Evans has been included in conversation, and that would free up a few million, $2 or $3 million. So that is something that could help facilitate the deal, but it's going to take a lot to make it happen.
That was TD yesterday on Darren Donick and Chase. And again, I feel like the Julio Jones saga. First of all, if you have a team that has any sort of need at wide receiver, your team is in the mix for Julio Jones. I've seen the Patriots in the mix for Julio Jones.
I've seen the Browns.
Today, Teddy Bruschi said that Aaron Rodgers and Julio should get together and find out together where their next destination is. And then try to go. Does some team have $50 million of cap space that I don't know about? Like, where is all of this coming from?
That sounds like a really fun idea.
But this is not basketball. And the salary cap, as fake as the NFL salary cap is, and it is a fake cap, as fake as that cap is, it is not as fake as basketball. I will give hockey credit because hockey is the one hard cap. Football, you can finagle it. TD was talking about kicking it down, but eventually you got to pay. Basketball, I don't even know what happens in basketball. Here's the deal with Julio. I don't think the Falcons can get what they want. I think the Falcons right now are sitting there. Arthur Smith today wouldn't comment about conversations he's had with Julio, wouldn't make any comment on Julio and what he said. Now, I told you yesterday, Caroline, I believe that Julio Jones and the Shannon Sharpe thing on Undisputed, where Shannon called Julio on the air and Julio said, I'm out of there, I think that was rehearsed. I think that was discussed. I have been in this industry for far too long. I'm telling you, these people do this kind of stuff sometimes for the attention because Julio gets something out of it where Atlanta was probably trying to convince people that they might hold on to Julio. They were trying to convince people they might, and Julio doesn't like the idea that being a possibility. So now Atlanta's leverage is totally out the window. But I believe that Shannon and Julio had discussed it ahead of time. There's a story of a really famous radio host who was really down on one really, really famous basketball player. And he had a really famous college coach on one time. And it was all over. The college coach ripped the famous radio host for all the things he had said about the famous player. And everybody ran with it. Deadspin was popular at the time. They ran with it. Awful Announcing ran with it. The Big Lead ran with it. I mean, everybody was talking about famous coach slams famous radio host about famous player. And then I was told later that, they taped the interview. And before they taped it, the famous radio host said to the famous coach, hey, rip me for such and such. Because the radio host knew that it would get him attention. I think Julio wants out. I think that this is Julio's way of saying, hey, Shannon, let's do it like this so everybody knows that I don't want to be there. Without me looking like some selfish, you-know-what, because it's like Aaron Rodgers, everybody's like, Aaron's selfish. Julio don't want that. So this is the way to kind of get it out there that Julio doesn't want to be there. So I think it was all fake, but clearly Julio doesn't want to be there anymore. And Mike Tannenbaum said after these comments, apparently the idea of the Falcons getting something good for Julio is probably going out the window.
Yeah, the price just went down, and here's why. It's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and what I mean by that is it's really hard to bring Julio Jones back. It's obviously been happening privately. Now it's out in public. You can't be having these conversations, and the player mentally is gone. He's left your organization. You can't bring him back, and other teams know that. So now maybe what was a second-round pick around the draft will probably likely be more like a third-round pick.
So he's saying, hey, it might have been a second then, maybe now it's a third, and I think the price is going to keep dropping on Julio. Here's the deal with Julio. He's expensive, he's old, he's hurt. Atlanta's going to get one of two things in a Julio trade. Either they're going to get something good, like a second-round pick, and a second-round pick is good, but they're going to have to pay. Or somebody else has to pay, and they're going to have to give him away. And they don't want to do that. They want something good and you to pay. They're not going to get that. They're not. So the idea that Atlanta can sit back and name their price, and then you pay Julio $15 million this year and 12 or 11 and a half next year, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I think that's ultimately where we are in the Julio sweepstakes is Atlanta has to get rid of him, and it's either they pay and they get something okay, or you pay and they give him away. And I do wonder, and I will lay out for the Titan fans how they can make the money work, because I went through it today, sacrificed time in the pool today. It was a very nice day to be out in the pool. I sacrificed time to literally go through these contracts. I mean, it is kind of my job, so
that's fair.
Probably should show up for work. But to go through these contracts, and we'll do this next hour, but at 3:30 we'll do this, but I went through it of how they make the contracts work, because there's going to be some finagling they have to do to get the Julio thing to work through. So that's where we are. But I do think Atlanta is not going to get both. What do you think?
I don't know, honestly, because I think that Atlanta is hoping that they're getting a lot, but for it in return, for Julio in return. However, I think Atlanta's highest priority is just freeing up some cap space. So I think that whoever does get Julio, or whoever is interested in getting Julio, will have some bargaining room, because Atlanta just needs to fill up space. They have nothing. And there are a lot of teams who, if they haven't necessarily said that they're interested, there are a lot of teams where it makes sense for him to land.
Either you pay and you give up nothing, or they pay and you give up something. Which one would you rather do? And I'm not talking for the Titans. I'm just talking in general.
Either you pay or they pay and you get nothing in return?
No. You pay. Like you pay Julio.
You pay and you
give them a
nothing.
sixth. Yeah.
Okay.
Like you give them a sixth or a fifth and you pay. Or they pay and you give them a second or a third.
I would rather pay and give up a sixth. And I'm thinking in a Titans mindset here. If I'm the Titans, I would pay and give up a sixth, because giving up a second or third round pick next year isn't helping you on capitalizing that window of Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry.
So I'm going to give you a hint as to how I make this work.
Okay.
You better hope Dylan Radins can play right away.
Yeah.
If you're going to make Julio Jones work, you better hope Dylan Radins can play right away. 3:30, I'll explain how contractually cap-wise the Titans can get Julio. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The big story, though, today, the Predators and the Canes, game number 5. Rod Brind'Amour used the press to his advantage. What did John Hines have to say? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, and it was odd. Hines and Poyle feel a little different about all this. Stillman Company, it's ESPN 1025, The Game. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The game number 5, Predators and Canes tonight, right here, ESPN 1025. The game at 7 o'clock. So Rod Brind'Amour, I brought this up yesterday. I am so tickled by the fact that Rob Brind'Amour is a former player. I mean, he played like 65 years in the NHL. He's a former player who's now a head coach. And he was the captain of the Hurricanes when they won the Cup, and Peter Laviolette was the coach. And we know how Peter Laviolette felt about the press. So a former player, remember, the players hate the press. Former player. And he has been using the press to his advantage in this series, including after Game 3 when he complained about the penalties. And everybody was texting me on Sunday morning about, what do you think about Brind'Amour? What do you think about him trying to work the refs? What do you think? I said, he's working the refs. I get it. I probably wouldn't have done it if I were him. I probably would have wanted to save that in my back pocket for later, just me personally. But I understand it. I get it. Makes sense. Okay. So Brind'Amour goes ahead and he complains about the officiating, and bang, he gets penalties called left and right on Sunday. So it worked. Now, it ultimately didn't work because I just kind of feel like, he lost the game. And so if you're going to do it, you probably want to win the game. Well, now John Hines has a chance to respond. And I was surprised that nobody asked John Hines about Brind'Amour's comments because, again, I almost feel like if one coach is using the press to play the refs, I think the other coach has to probably do something. So this morning I asked John Hines about his thoughts on Brind'Amour working the refs.
It feels like Rod Brind'Amour did a pretty nice job of working the refs with his post-game comments after Game 3. Kind of what did you think of the officiating when you look back on the tape? And do you kind of have a feeling about way the penalties have been called this series?
Well, I think the penalties in the first 3 games were warranted. I thought the referees did a good job, and I think some of the complaints about the penalties, but I think there was a lot of pucks over the glass on their part. So, I think when you look at the game went on, they had the early power plays in Game 4. We had some later. So, I don't really want to get too much into the officiating in the sense, that you're going through it. I mean, I thought there were some calls that could have been made either way. They didn't. But you know what? For us, it's you got to find ways to win games, and you got to be able to control what you can control. And the fact that you talk about the referees in the press conference, I don't believe that influences the refs. Okay,
let's start here. First of all, do you believe the end statement that John Hines just let out, which was, I don't think that, what you say in the press conference influences the refs. Do you buy that, yes or no?
Do I think it should? No. Do I think it can? Yes.
No, I didn't ask that. Did it?
I do.
Of course it did.
I do.
So, and John Hines knows that. He knows that. Okay, put that aside. The second part was the moment of truth he gave you in that answer was at the beginning when he said, I liked how they were called for the first 3 games. I think they got it right. The calls were a bunch of pucks over the glass. So there are certain penalties, and this is kind of like football. In football, pass interference, was it pass interference? I don't know. Face mask, that was a face mask. And hockey's the same way. Puck over the glass, that's an easy one. Too many men on the ice, that's an easy one. High sticking, that's an easy one. Interference, embellishment, things like that, they're incredibly subjective. So he told you that through the first 3 games, he liked the way it was called. He thinks that, hey, they were calling it correctly. Did not say I liked how it was called in Game 4. Then said, I forget the way he said it, but basically the way it felt to me, he said it was, yeah, Jared, I know where you're going with this, and I don't want to push back.
Which good for him.
But is it good for him?
I mean,
because
if it's going to work in Brind'Amour's favor, then what's going to stop him from making comments in the press conference that lend in their favor?
Like what's going to stop Brind'Amour from doing it again?
Yes.
We can't play the same card twice. So this card's done. This is why I wouldn't have done it if I was Brind'Amour. Because, and I know how hockey guys are, which is we can't worry about the Tampa Bay series until we get to the Tampa Bay series. But if I have a team that has as effective of a penalty kill as they have, I would be okay with being on the penalty kill. I kept telling you after game 2 that all Carolina's going to do now is they're not worried about hooking you. They're not worried about boarding you. They're not worried about tripping you. Because if they go to the penalty kill, what were the Predators at that point? Like 0 of 14 or 0 of 11 or 0 of 12, whatever it was through the 2 games. They knew the Predators couldn't score. In fact, the best offense for Carolina was on the penalty kill. So they kind of like it. So, of course, they're going to be more willing to take penalties because the consequences for taking a penalty are not as high as they are for the Predators, who, if they commit a penalty, we all hold hands in a circle and pray that the other team doesn't score. So, to me, it was just simple. Like, that's why Carolina takes more penalties. Well, if I'm Brind'Amour, I want to wait until I'm playing Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos, and I got Kucherov on one half wall, and I got Stamkos on the other half wall, and I really need them not to be on the power play because they're lethal on the power play. That's probably when I would have used it. He cannot say that in another press conference the rest of the playoffs and it have any effect. So he used it. Hines is not willing to go there. Why is Hines not willing to go there? And I would argue that I think Hines is not willing to go there for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I don't think he wants to get in a battle of the press with Rod Brind'Amour. I think maybe he views that as a distraction. The second reason is I'm not sure John Hines, at this point in his coaching career, has the skins on the wall to go into the press room and start ripping the refs. Brind'Amour's won a cup as a player. Brind'Amour got to the Eastern Conference Final a couple of years ago. Brind'Amour's going to be Coach of the Year. I mean, everybody in hockey has a ton of respect for Rod Brind'Amour. And that's not to say that they don't have respect for John Hines, but it's just like, that's Rod the Bod, and this is John Hines. And then I probably think the third reason is if he starts talking about that, maybe he will feel like he is distracting the players from what's really important, whereas Brind'Amour doesn't care. So I get why Hines didn't do it. Why he didn't fire back at Brind'Amour, but I do think at some point, if the other coach is going to play that game, you may have to play that game too.
I just think that's so weak.
On Brind'Amour's part?
In general, to try and use the press to get what you want.
Why? Isn't that the point of the press?
Is it?
Well,
I don't think so. I don't think the point of the press is to manipulate the outcome of a game.
No, the point of the press is to hold those in power accountable. That's the point of the press. Is to hold your elected officials, that's what the First Amendment stands for. I don't have a problem. I do not have a problem with a player working the press. We were just talking about whether or not the Julio Jones thing was totally orchestrated by Julio and Shannon. And I'm thinking it was. And that would be an example of using the press. A lot of times people don't mind using the press. I don't have a problem with it. I think people do it all the time. Aaron Rodgers uses the press. Now, look, I think Aaron Rodgers went on Kenny Mayne's last show, to celebrate Kenny Mayne on SportsCenter last night. But Aaron knew he was going to be asked about it, and Aaron knew that he had to say something that was, I'm not a selfish, vindictive jerk, and I really just have a disagreement with the organization, but just so everybody knows, I don't want to be here anymore. And Aaron got it out. And Aaron got it out in the way Aaron wanted to get it out. He's using the press. Brind'Amour's using the press. I mean, I know. It'd be nice for the coach just to say, hey, screw the press. We're going to go in there and beat them, which is what Mike Vrabel does. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's an element that, hey, if you can use the press and you can get more calls by using the press, I think that's a tool in the tool bag. That is part of the strategy of the sport.
It's part of it. I just don't like it. And I'm not saying it's bad on the side of the press because they're doing their jobs. They're reporting on what is being said. However, on Brind'Amour's part or any coach's part, again, Aaron Rodgers, his case, for example, he's using the press for his own personal advantage to say, look, this is what's going on. People are going to talk about it no matter what. So here is me saving face.
So you think it's okay when it's more selfish?
No, I don't think it's okay when it's more selfish, but I think that what Brind'Amour is saying, I just think it's kind of weak. Like, just go out there and win a game.
Right, but he's doing that so that he can have a better chance at winning the game.
Yes. I just don't like it.
Would you not like it if John Hines did it?
No.
So you don't like anybody who uses the press to work the officials. You don't like anybody who uses the press to motivate their own players or to.
That's not what I'm saying.
send a
Motivating your own
message to the other
players
team,
is different, and that's
or-
different. But I think if you're using it to influence the officiating in any way, that's kind of weak.
But it happens all the time.
That doesn't mean it's okay.
See,
It doesn't mean that I like it.
I don't have one problem with it. I think it is part of strategy. And if we're going to make the coaches do press and we're going to make the players do press and we're going to make them talk in front of the camera and we're going to cover every word of everything that they should say, it would probably only be in their best interest to find a way to help them win games. Because normally doing a bunch of media and telling a bunch of stuff does not help your team win. It doesn't help your team win to get up there and be like, yeah, Bob, the reason I put Johnson in the game was because I think he helps us out. Well, you don't want to tell that kind of stuff. You don't want anyone to know why you did what you did, but you got to do it. So if I got to do it, then I might as well put my team in the best position to win. I do think Hines taking the high road is not a bad idea here. But, I mean, when Brendan Moore did it, I thought it was as transparent as day what he was doing. And I thought the refs were going to see through it and not kowtow. And it feels to me like they kowtowed in spite of what John Hines said. 615-7, hold that thought. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. What kind of game do we expect to be called today? And how worried should we be about that Carolina crowd? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. And then again, at 3:30, I will explain to you, if you're a Titan fan, how you get to the Julio Jones contract, if in fact it's what you want to do. Stillman Company, it's ESPN 1025, The Game. We're streaming on the Game Nashville app.
Hi, John. So we all saw how much the home fans in Bridgestone Arena helped fuel the team, especially in those long overtimes. So how difficult is it to prepare guys for the change in environment from home playoff game to road playoff game? Do you encourage them to, engage with that and be fueled by it, even if it's on the road?
Well, I think that it is a benefit for us that we've actually been here, with the first two games, and it is a factor in this series. When you look at what's going on in Bridgestone is unbelievable, and here, I mean, there's a lot of fans. It's loud. Teams get energy from it. But this is the best. This is the best part. You're coming in Game 5 on the road. We haven't won a game here. If you're going to give yourself a chance to win the series, this is the best thing. You're coming in. It's a big game. There's going to be a raucous crowd. And this is what we talk about even within our room. It's digging in, having some toughness, sticking together. These are the times where you really have to be able to play, not with each other. You got to be able to play for each other. And great challenge for us, excited. And, it's something that this time of year is, and the benefits that we have fans in the stands now, it just makes it that much more exciting and competitive. So we're looking forward to it.
Hines on the Carolina crowd. I don't know. Are they expanding in Carolina? Are they expanding the people like they are at Bridgestone Arena? Expanded capacity. Now I think it's going to take it like 14,000 or 16,000 at Bridgestone. I think that it's not an accident that came out on the day of the game, so Carolina can't change anything around for Game 5. But that's neither here nor there. But John Hines refusing to go and fight for calls in the press like Rod Brindamore did after Game 3. David Poyle did his weekly interview on Darren, Donick, and Chase, and he was asked about those comments from Rod Brindamore. Poyle with a little bit maybe sharper criticism. Here's what he said.
First of all, we've seen it every year and in every sport, whether it be players or coaches or managers, it's total gamesmanship. I hope they get fined for doing that. I don't know if they have or not. I don't know how much the officials are read stuff or influenced by that. I mean, they have daily meetings. We have a supervisor of officials that's here. He goes over the games with them. I'm sure he has clips of the game in terms of things he wants to show them, which could be penalties. But the one obvious thing, and just to simplify this, is that they've got 4 or 5 penalties in the 2 games that he was referring to for delay of the game, meaning shooting the puck over the glass into the stands, which has nothing to do with the officials. It's just an automatic call. So if you just take those penalties away, I mean, it's not even, but it's very close to even. So, like I say, it's in a nutshell, it's just gamesmanship to support his team, to whine a little bit. I guess we've all done it from time to time. I'm just hoping that the officials are smart enough, strong enough not to be influenced by that.
A little bit sharper than John Hines. A little bit hoping they get fined, saying, hey, he's just crying to get better calls, which is what we all knew. But sharper tone. Maybe because, again, John Hines is the coach and David Poyle's not, so they have different kind of roles. But I was a little surprised by that. Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And again, in about 5 minutes, we'll get to the breakdown of how the Titans can acquire Julio, though I don't really want them to. But what's in the text line, Caroline, again, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
One texter said, first, we have to agree that saying anything to the press will affect the officiating crew. And yes, you can use that card again because the next series may have a different officiating crew. Yes, there will be a different officiating crew, perhaps. But, I mean, the more and more you say it, it just kind of loses its impact. So, no, I don't think that Rod Brindamore can say that again or repeatedly just because there is a new officiating crew.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. Once you say it, it's done. And then you become really – once you become the guy that is always complaining, then nobody listens to anything you say. So Brindamore has this one card. He played it. Now he has to wait till next year before he can play it again. Sometimes the coaches, they'll get worked up about really odd things. I was trying to figure out, was it Randy Carlisle in Anaheim a couple years ago that, threw a fit over the shot count?
Was it that? Mike Yeo was whining one year.
Oh, he whined like a freaking baby. Oh, my God, did he whine. Now, I think he was probably onto something. He whined after the Predators won Game 4 against St. Louis, and then he got his calls in Game 5. St. Louis won Game 5. They came back here and lost Game 6. Predators went on. But, Yeah, Mike, I remember calling him legitimately a crybaby on the boy. First of all, he was a crybaby, and he is a terrible coach. Those two things I can say. I mean, boy, I miss those old coaches the Predators used to play in the playoffs. Boudreaux and Mike Yeo, and I'm trying to think who else stunk it up. But, boy, those guys stunk. What else we got, Caroline?
Another texter said, I agree that it's weak to use the press in attempts to help your team win. Your team needs to win without outside influences. But what is even weaker is a ref or refs that allow their decisions to be influenced by winning head coaches or players.
See, that's the thing. Everybody I knew thought Brenda Moore was crying and trying to sway the refs.
Yes.
Every single person I talked to. Now, again, most people I talk to are rooting for the Predators. But this is very common, as David Poyle said. Like, it's very common. And so I'm sitting there thinking, well, of course they're more aggressive because when they take a penalty, they feel comfortable about killing it off. So I don't think that we would see them not be afraid to take penalties so you can be more aggressive. Secondly, to David and John's point, when you put the puck over the glass or you have too many men on the ice you high stick somebody,
that's very obvious.
It's a call. It's not that is not a subjective call. Like in football, if you have 13 guys on the field, that's not a subjective call. And so clearly that's part of it. And I look at the refs and I'm thinking, how could these guys not see right through what Rod Brendamore was doing? But guess what? It didn't work for them because they lost. Now, it did work for them because they got the penalties. But I would expect to see more like game one and the overtimes. I don't think they're calling much tonight unless it's obvious or a non-subjective penalty. I think they're going to be very careful not to blow the whistle like they are in overtime. 615-737-1025. Okay, coming up next, Julio. It won't go away. The Titans and Julio, they are, I believe, the betting favorites to land Julio Jones.
It is now the Patriots.
Patriots aren't going to land Julio Jones. But the Titans were at one point the betting favorite to land Julio Jones. One, I'm going to tell you how they can do it. Then once I tell you how they can do it, I'll let you guys decide if you're willing to do it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Stillman Company. Speaking of that phone number, go ahead and text in with our friends at Dos Equis. They are bringing the party to you. Text the word golden to 615-737-1025 to qualify for the ultimate in-home watch party. And one lucky Predators fan will be getting tickets to a playoff game at Bridgestone Arena. Get a dose, Smashville. Must be 21 or older to enter and win. Enjoy Dos Equis responsibly. Live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Man, look, you want to go to the Cowboys, Julio, or you want to stay in Atlanta?
Oh, man, nah, I'm out of there, man.
You
He's
out of there?
out. He's out of there.
Are you going to? Ideally, where would you like to go?
Right now, I want to win.
Okay. Well, don't go to Dallas. If you go to, you ain't winning in Dallas, Julio.
Man, listen, come on, man. You already know I know.
Okay.
There you go. That was Julio Jones on Undisputed saying, oh, I am out of there. I am not going back to Atlanta. Now, there was the picture with him in the Dallas Cowboys hoodie and everything else. And so today, I do not think it is feasible for the Tennessee Titans to acquire Julio Jones. Let me put that out there. And not only do I think it's not feasible, I wouldn't do it. So let me throw those disclaimers. But I think there's a couple of questions. One, how much would Julio cost? How do you afford Julio? And then what would you be willing to give up in order to get Julio? It's a lot like buying a house, where if you decide you want to buy a house, what's the down payment? What's the interest rate? Will the lender approve it? Will the inspection pass? There's a lot of moving pieces here. So first, let's talk about what the Titans would have to give up. Jeff Darlington today, people are saying the first-round pick for Julio, second-round pick. Jeff Darlington is saying the price is falling across the league. Here's what he said this morning on ESPN.
Well, I already think that we're in a situation with Julio Jones where when he says he wants out, this is a you can't fire me, I quit scenario. Like, the Falcons already, when they had this new regime come in, knew that they were going to have to move on from Julio Jones when they looked at the cap number, when they looked at just all sorts of different dynamics. So I don't think any of this is a surprise to the Falcons. I think they've been having conversations behind the scenes. Guys, we know, Tannenbaum knows as well as anybody, everybody around the league kind of knows behind the scenes that he's available. So the price already has been kind of plummeting since the perception was that he's not available. I honestly do think that we're looking at the Falcons holding out for maybe a second-round pick, kind of holding on to him until the leverage gets high enough, maybe a bidding war, but we're really talking about third, second-round pick at this point. I would be shocked if he gets traded for anything more, like a first-round pick. To me, that's off the table at this point.
Okay, second or third round pick right now is what Darlington says. And I told you earlier, Julio Jones comes with a $15.3 million salary this year and a $11.5 million salary next year, and you got to pay them both. So this is not one of these, hey, he's old, he's hurt, he comes in, pops a hamstring, cut him next year, move on. Nope, you can't do it. And when you trade a second-round pick, I mean, you are really getting after it. That's the first part. In order to absorb the contract, here's what they would have to do. First, they would have to restructure Ryan Tannehill's contract, which would guarantee next season, 2022. So I feel confident that Tannehill will be the quarterback this year. But if he goes out in the playoffs again and doesn't perform, are you confident he'll be the quarterback next year? That's a question for the fans to decide. I don't know. The second thing is, and that would save you in the ballpark of $6 to $8 million. Because what you're not going to do is you're not going to just backload everything, create fake years, and then have 2023 come and you be charged with a $45 million cap hit on Ryan Tannehill. You're not going to do that. So in order to do it, you could save about $6 to $8 million this year. So that's one way to consider it. The second thing they could do, and again, you would have to do this. You can't do it without restructuring Tannehill's contract. So you have to restructure it and guarantee Tannehill next year. The second thing is you have to redo Taylor Lewan's contract. He is not guaranteed for next year almost at all, and he's only played half the games over the last 2 seasons. Are you willing to save about $5.8 million on the cap and give yourself somewhere in the ballpark of $11 million, $12 million by guaranteeing next year for Taylor Lewan? So now you're at $12 million-ish. You still got to sign the rest of the rookie pool, though I think you've signed most of it. And you want to have money for a kicker. If a Zach Ertz or another veteran tight end gets cut next week, you want to have money to sign that guy. Somebody gets hurt, you want to have some cash in reserves. Which means I think you have to make the third move, which is release Roger Saffold. That would save you $7.5 million on the cap, and it would ultimately leave you with $20.3 million. Now, Are you willing to pay a second-round pick? Because I think a second-round pick gets you Julio. I don't think they're going to get a second round. I think third, fourth is probably more likely. Are you willing to pay a second-round pick, guarantee Tannehill's the quarterback next year, guarantee Lewan a big salary next year? Again, he's only played half the games over the last couple of years, and cut Roger Saffold, your left guard. This is why I hinted at it earlier today in the show. You better hope Dylan Radins can play right away. Because if you want Julio Jones, you have to cut Roger Saffold. And if you cut Roger Saffold, you're looking at Aaron Brewer, an undrafted free agent that played okay in the Ravens game last year, or Dylan Radins, your second-round pick, who some people say he's more of a guard at the NFL level than he is a tackle. Then you better be careful. You better be safe that guy can go in. So, again, the way to do it is you got to trade a second or third, probably a third, redo Tannehill's contract, guarantee him for next year, redo Lewan's contract, guarantee him for next year, cut Roger Saffold, and put Dylan Radins in at left guard. Would you do that?
That's a whole lot for a guy who has how many years left, do we think? Two to three?
Well, he's definitely got
more?
two because you're taking on two if you make
taking on two. That's a lot. Is Taylor Lewan willing to restructure his contract?
Well, he definitely would be. I mean, you're talking about guaranteeing him next year. So these guys are getting something out of this. Like when Tannehill restructures his contract, he's getting more money up front. When Lewan redoes his deal, he's getting next year guaranteed. I mean, if Lewan goes out there, and again, I'm like most of you, I think Lewan's going to go out there and play left tackle and be fine. Because, you know, the PED suspension, that was 4 games, whatever. Then last year, torn ACL, guys tear ACLs all the time. He'll come back. He'll be okay. But if, let's say, Lewan, knock on wood, separates his shoulder in the 3rd game of the season and has to have season-ending surgery, tears a tricep or a pec or something like that and has to miss the rest of the season, breaks a leg and has to miss the season, you want to pay him $15 million next year? Like, again, you know.
That's a risk that's posed with anyone.
But it's different with a guy who's already had injuries.
That's true.
So when it's Mariota and the guy can't stay healthy, and I have to trade a 4th-round pick away in order to get a backup quarterback because I can't trust this guy to be healthy because it's the biggest game of the season, and the guy's elbow's acting up, and I have to play Blaine Gabbert at quarterback, now I don't give you the benefit of the doubt. If every year I have to go have a backup left tackle ready to start, then I can't pay you $15 million. Then you have the old injury label attached to you, and guys that have the injury label attached to them normally don't get treated like the guys that don't. Lewan doesn't have the injury label, but another injury I think does it. So are you willing to guarantee him $15 million for next year? Are you willing to guarantee Tannehill is your quarterback next year? And are you willing to cut your Pro Bowl caliber left guard? Because that's what it would take. That's what it would take. Now, again, you're a running team. Derrick Henry runs the ball. If you trade for Julio Jones, are you changing your philosophy? Because now you're getting rid of your left guard. And you're getting rid of your left guard who is a freaking great run blocker. So if you're willing to change the philosophy and say, hey, let's air it out, then okay. If you think Dylan Radins is good enough, didn't play football last year because North Dakota State didn't play, but if you think Dylan Radins is good enough, stick him at left guard, okay. Okay. I would not do this. And again, you're talking about a legitimate pick if it's a 2nd or a 3rd rounder. Okay. Again, I would not do this. I would not because I don't think Julio's worth it. And I've told you, I'm not giving you a good pick and paying his contract. Either I'll give you a decent pick and you pay, or I'll pay and I'm giving you a 6th or a 7th. And I think that's what's ultimately going to happen unless somebody like John Gruden gets the stupid bug and just decides, okay, I'm going to give away a 1st-round pick or a 2nd-round pick, and I'm going to take on that contract, and I would never do that. So those are your options. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, calls and texts. I've just laid it out for you. In order to get Julio, as it is constructed right now, you have to give up a good pick, 2nd or 3rd, restructure Tannehill, guarantee him next year, restructure Lewan, guarantee him next year, cut Roger Saffold. Would you do it? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. By the way, I'm not sure, did we get an answer from you if you would do that or not?
I would not do it. But And NFL.com listed 5 very likely places that Julio Jones could end up, and one of them was the Indianapolis Colts. So, no, I would not do that, but playing against Julio also does scare me.
I have no problem if Indianapolis wants to put their season in the hands of an oft-injured quarterback, an oft-injured left tackle, and an oft-injured wide receiver. I am willing to take that risk.
I think the risk is definitely worth what you would be willing to give up to get him.
The risk
of playing against him is a lot higher than. I'm trying to figure out what I'm saying. The risk of playing him is a lot higher. Risk of what you're willing to give up is higher than what the risk of playing him is what I'm saying. So I'm not willing to give all that up just to not play him.
Because everything that I just told you would absolutely just crush you if it doesn't work out. Like, if it doesn't work out with Julio,
there's a lot of ifs.
Carl Pickens.
If Taylor Lewan stays healthy, if Ryan Tannehill can bump up his production, if Dylan Radins can play. There's a lot of ifs that I don't feel confident in.
So I think the cutting Saffold is the thing that bothers me the most about this. But you would be, we talk about going for it, you would be going for it the next 2 years. That would be that next step. 615-737-1025. I laid it out there. Are you willing to do it? 615-737-1025, Stillman Company. We'll get to you next. It's ESPN 1025, The Game.
Well, in some cases, you're going to have to give stuff back to help move that mountain because you got to clear up space on the salary cap. But I wouldn't say, I mean, apparently they're asking for a first-round pick. I wouldn't give a first-round pick for Julio Jones.
No way.
That big contract. So,
no,
they're not going to get that. And there's talks that it has been reduced to a second-round pick. I'm honestly not even – I would give a day 3 pick, right, to be able to guarantee that I get him. But I wouldn't give a day 2 or day 1 pick. I wouldn't do that, along with taking on that contract.
So TD's not willing to do the paying and giving. So I've said with Julio, I think what ultimately is going to happen is either someone's going to give, so they'll give a nice pick, a second-round pick, and Atlanta's got to pay, or you pay Julio, but you give him, as TD said, a day 3 pick. Let's go to your phone, 615-737-1025. By the way, Joe Rexroth texted me and said, I think there's all these different ways they could go about doing this that wouldn't involve cutting Saffold. Again, Atlanta this is not an NBA trade where you match salaries. Atlanta's not matching salaries on this. They want to get rid of the money. Mm-hmm. That's why they don't want Julio there anymore. If Julio made $4 million, they'd want Julio on their team. So the idea of trading Evans and all these other guys, look, all the guys that you can cut that can save you money, you've already cut. You cut Adoree Jackson. You cut Dennis Kelly. You cut Malcolm Butler. You've cut everybody out there to cut except Ben Jones, your center, and Roger Saffold. And since there's not another center on the roster, I'm not cutting Ben Jones as much as I would be okay with it. I'm not cutting Ben Jones, and I would not cut – I'm a running team. Roger Saffold's a big key to my running attack. I'd rather go with Josh Reynolds at wide receiver and focus on my running attack than Julio Jones. But I promise I'd go right to your phone, so let's do it. 615-737-1025. Charlie is going to kick us off. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's up, Charlie?
Hey, Jared. Look, I hear you guys with the salary cap. It would be a lot. But when we're talking about a first or third-round pick, I think we're underestimating the impact Julio has. Everybody's talking about, how many years does he have left? Take away 2020. Look at the 2 years before.
Why? Why am I taking away 2020?
Because, he played 10 games. He got hurt. That doesn't mean his career's over. But look at the
hey, let me say this. You get hurt. You're on the wrong side of 30. You get hurt. You get hurt like he got hurt. I think it was a hamstring. You get hurt like he gets hurt. That is you can sit there and say, throw it away. I ain't throwing it away.
He's no more injury prone than our quarterback is. And let me just say this. You look at the 2 seasons before that, if he's in a Titans uniform, he's got one of the most decorated receiving seasons in the history of the franchise. Look it up, guys. I mean, we're talking about a surefire Hall of Famer. 1,400 yards is his floor.
I mean, I think you're getting a little carried away, and I appreciate your call, Charlie. I think in life, we can't look at everything that we do as best case scenario. I'm not what's best case scenario? Okay, let's do it. You can't do that with almost anything in life, right? Don't you have to factor in the fact that Julio got hurt last year? Throw last year away. Why? Why am I throwing last year away? Well, he's not any more injury prone than the quarterback. Let me say this. The quarterback tore his ACL, which, again, is not a problem for the Titans because they gave Bud Dupree $1 billion, and he tore his ACL, and they drafted Jeffrey Simmons in the first round, and he tore his ACL. And, again, ACL is not the end of the world for the Titans. They got Ryan Tannehill on the cheap. And since Ryan Tannehill has become the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, he has not missed one meaningful snap. So I have 2 years of a guy who has not missed one meaningful snap. And Tannehill does some stuff now that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me, with that celebration last year against Buffalo where he could have torn his ACL when he came down to do the finger roll celebration, or when he took on 2 tacklers in the end zone against Jacksonville, or I want to say there was another game where Tannehill gave up his throwing shoulder in order to dive into the end zone, and Vrabel was furious. So Tannehill ain't perfect, but let me say this. You need a quarterback. The show. Give Josh Reynolds a chance, people. I'm not saying he's as good as Julio, But the idea that Julio is a for sure Hall of Famer and thus the Titans need to take him, that doesn't hold any weight with me.
Why not just put Josh Reynolds in the slot?
And add Julio?
Yeah.
Because I want to run the football.
Okay.
So that's not really giving Josh Reynolds the chance. I mean, like, Josh Reynolds wants a chance to be a starting wide receiver, and I think he's earned it. I think that's why he signed here. But again, Josh Reynolds' feelings don't really bother me either. As far as, well, it's hurting Josh Reynolds' feelings. Okay, I ain't worried about that. But I would say that, I mean, I just don't think I don't think the risk is worth the reward, and I don't think that the reward is all that likely to happen. But again, you can say what you want about the guys going to the Hall of Fame. Emmitt Smith, when he signed with the Arizona Cardinals, he was a for sure Hall of Famer too. Guess what? He was done. Julio was on the wrong side of 30, got hurt last year, does get hurt. Let's keep it real. Didn't he have one of those like broken bones in his foot a couple of years ago, like a handful of years ago? And I just remember Floyd was always...
In 2013, he only played 5 games. Last year, he played 9. Other than that, he's played in at least 13. Started at least 13 every year.
So maybe that's not as injury prone, but again, when you have a injury like that, his hamstring injury, and you're on the wrong side of 30, I don't feel great about it. Craig is up next. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Craig.
Hey, guys. Thank you for taking my call. Love the new duo. Let's face it, Ryan Tannehill is a great quarterback when he's a play-action quarterback. If you get Julio Jones, you change your whole scheme when it comes to your offense. So you're pretty much telling the defense what you're going to do. And not all that money that you're going to be paying, you're going to hurt yourself in the future. Like, you're not going to be able to sign, like this past year, we couldn't sign Butler. We couldn't sign Amari. But, like, I mean, Julio Jones is definitely not worth all that because he's old. I mean, he's not, like, ancient, but...
No, but he's old by the standards of the league at that position. He's old. And,
yeah.
And, Craig, I totally appreciate your call. I mean, the Julio thing is a total risk. It's not a risk I'm willing to take. Like, the Clowney thing to me, that wasn't a risk. He just wasn't worth it. And I told you guys that on the front end, and I got blasted. I went on News 2 the day they signed him with Corey Curtis, and I got blasted. And I just said, like, he's not worth it. Like, I stand by that. He is not – Clowney was not worth it. I understand Julio being worth it. I understand the idea that if you have an offense with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, to Caroline's point, Josh Reynolds. Now, they don't have a tight end, but I guess they can work around that. If you have that kind of offense, I mean, you've got a Madden NFL superstar caliber offense. I will give you that. But I also don't know that, like, Tannehill, do you want Tannehill throwing it 30 times a game? Because we've always said Tannehill's at his best when he's 17 for 21. And we've said this team is a running team with Derrick Henry. And I think that does change a little bit when Julio's out there. I heard Teddy Bruschi today say that Julio needs to, the right guy to get Julio to take a pay cut would be a quarterback, not a coach. And a quarterback that could say, hey, I'll get you the ball 15 times a game. And I thought, that's not really, that's not Tannehill's style. Tannehill is, if you're open, I'm throwing you the ball. That's how he has been since the day he took over as quarterback. So to bring him in and promise him, I don't know. Chris Sanders talks a lot, and we can ask Chris about this when he joins the show tomorrow. But Chris talks a lot about when Carl Pickens came in 2000. And I've told you that only Carl Pickens rivals Clowney as the most overrated signing in the history of the Titans. And Pickens was a Pro Bowl receiver in Cincinnati, and everybody thought he was coming home to Tennessee and he was going to light it up. And Pickens not only didn't do anything and was cut 1 year into a 5-year contract, but Pickens also rubbed a lot of guys in the locker room the wrong way. And I'm not saying Julio would, but Julio wants the ball. Julio's coming here to get the ball. And I think the team works best when Derek gets the ball. That's just me. 615-737-1025. We'll get more of your reaction. 615-737-1025. By the way, Jeff Schultz Long-time Atlanta columnist broke the story last week that the Falcons were looking to trade Julio Jones. Jeff Schultz will join Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow at 8:30. So he'll have the latest on kind of the Julio news. 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your reaction on Julio. Plus, again, outlining the steps. And if there's another step there you think, I'll entertain it like Joe Rexroad's trying to fire at me. We'll discuss next. Stillman Company. It's ESPN 1025. The game sounds baseball. That's right. They are on the air. Be sure to check out the Nashville Sounds. ESPN 94.9 is home for Sounds baseball. Tonight, the Sounds are on the road taking on Columbus. Pregame with Jeff Him starts at 5:50. First pitch at 6:05. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9. Presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and 312 Pizza Company. Stillman Company. It's ESPN 1025. The game. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. Game 5 tonight. Mark Howard will join us in 30 minutes. We'll get Mark's thoughts on Game 5 between the Preds and the Canes. But again, another big story. There's two big stories in my opinion. There's Game 5 tonight, and there's Julio Jones and the Titans. Now, I do not think the Titans are going to acquire Julio Jones. As I told you last hour, the only ways to get Julio Jones are to redo Ryan Tannehill's contract, which I think everybody thinks is coming. I asked John Robinson after the draft if they were open to redoing Tannehill's contract, and John, in a very generic yes, we were willing to look at it, kind of hinted that they're going to do it. I think they need to do it in order to sign all of the rookies. But anywho, redo Tannehill, redo Lewan, which would guarantee Lewan for next year, and cut Roger Saffold. And Joe Rexrode texted me, and Joe Rexrode said that he doesn't think that's what they have to do. He said that, he says, pipe dream to think that they would want Rashaan Evans, but I said last week that if they trade Evans, Josh Reynolds, and Janoris Jenkins back to Atlanta, which is weird to me, but those are two positions the Falcons are seeking veteran help out, then bump Tannehill, make his pay all bonus this year, which adds more cap to next year. But it's going for it. First of all, it doesn't add more cap to next year. It adds more cap to every year the rest of the way on the Tannehill deal. And who's playing corner? If I trade Janoris Jenkins, Josh Reynolds, and Rashaan Evans to get Julio Jones, who's playing corner? You're putting Caleb Farley out there?
That's what concerns me, and that seems a little bit, I don't want to say pointless, but to get rid of a pretty talented wide receiver for another one who may or may not still be able to produce like he used to, like a Pro Bowl wide receiver, that's a big risk. And you're also leaving another really big hole at corner, and the defense was just atrocious last year. So to blow up the things that you have done to build up that defense, I don't think is a very smart move.
I mean, I think the idea of trading Evans to Atlanta may be part of this deal if you end up doing this deal, but I don't think they will. But I think the idea of trading Evans to Atlanta, I think you do that to get Hayden Hurst, the tight end. They have declined his fifth-year option. They drafted Kyle Pitts 4th overall, so they don't need Hayden Hurst to be their starting tight end. They've got a second linebacker next to Deion Jones that I've never heard of. We know Rashaan Evans knows the defense with Dean Pease. So maybe you trade Evans, fifth-year option declined. You trade him to take the spot of Hayden Hurst, and then you have a starting tight end. That's fine. We haven't even discussed what they're doing at tight end. Here's the thing, though, about all these moves. If you do Joe's move and you trade Janoris Jenkins, now you have to ask, who's playing corner for the Titans? I don't like asking that question. If it comes to cutting Roger Saffold, you have to ask, who's playing left guard? Where they have a guy in Aaron Brewer who played there last year, and when he played there in a backup role, played okay. Now, I still think he's an undrafted backup kind of guy, but they also drafted Dylan Radins in the second round, and you need second-round picks generally to be able to contribute right away. So maybe you put Radins at guard, which some people think he's better suited as a guard than he is a tackle. I don't know why the hell the Titans took him. I don't know if it's to be the long-term answer at right tackle. I don't know if it's to be the replacement for Lewan at left tackle. I don't know if it's to be a center. I don't know. Everybody has different opinions about this kid. If they think he can play guard, it's a lot easier for me to cut Roger Saffold, who's got some injuries that he seems to always deal with every year and can't pass protect worth a damn, and put Dylan Radins in that spot because he's next to Lewan and he's next to Ben Jones and there's veteran help and Nate Davis is a veteran and they'll be okay. I'm more willing to do that than I am to give up a starting corner. It's like cutting Ben Jones. If I cut Ben Jones, I save $6.2 million against the cap. That makes it easier to trade for Julio. Who's playing center? I don't have a center. Well, I can't do that. So I can't do, right now, I have a second wide receiver. I don't have a tight end. And I can't get rid of a guy at a position that I then say, I don't have that now. Again, this is a running team. The Titans are. And we're talking about the second wide receiver. AJ's the first, even if you add Julio. I just think there's so much. I mean, there's every angle of the Julio deal involves like one question. In fact, I want you to count all the questions that I'm about to ask you as I feel like you have to make in order to make the Julio trade.
Okay.
Is Julio healthy enough and young enough to still be a big-time player?
That's two questions that are really big.
Okay. Is Ryan Tannehill a good enough quarterback to win me a Super Bowl if I give him the weapons in A.J. Brown and Julio Jones? Am I a better team when I release Roger Saffold and I still try to run the ball with Derrick Henry? Is Taylor Lewan and his injury history, are we willing to guarantee him the next 2 seasons when he's only played a half of the games over the last 2 seasons? Do we believe that Ryan Tannehill will take a step up? And I guess you could say you've already asked this, but will he play better in the playoffs? Because that's what this move would be for the playoffs. Am I willing to do this and have no other cap space? That means go with a rookie kicker. That means go with no tight end. There's another question. What am I doing at tight end? How many questions did I just... Oh, is Dylan Radins ready to play right away?
That was 9.
9 questions. So I am asking you 9 questions in order to acquire Julio Jones. And each question is a legitimate big question, right? Like, is Dylan Radins ready to start today at left guard if I cut Roger Saffold? Because Roger Saffold can give me a Pro Bowl caliber performance at left guard, especially as a run blocker.
Now, I do have to say about Dylan Radins, and I admittedly watched 0 NDSU games, so I have not seen him play. But if I've heard anything about him, I've heard that he is versatile and can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. So are you willing to throw Dylan Radins in there at center? He's taken snaps at center before.
So center in the NFL, kid played 1AA football.
Yep.
He's coming up to the line of scrimmage, and he's got to diagnose the run call. He's got to diagnose the blitz. I mean, the thing about Jones, and I was in favor of releasing Jones and either drafting a guy or signing a guy or something like that, or I basically told Jones, I would make Ben Jones take a pay cut. Mm-hmm. Like before, when the Malcolm Butler or Dory Jackson, all that talk was out there, I said for Ben Jones, hey, like, you're going to make $7 million this year. I need that to be $3 million. And maybe I'll give you next year too, and then but I need you to take a pay cut. And the Titans didn't even offer to do that. You're talking about taking a rookie who played 1 football game last year and sticking him at center in the NFL.
I'm just asking your thoughts on it.
I don't think you can do that.
I don't think you can either.
Like, if I had a center from Ohio State who was a center, and like a good center at Ohio State, and I took him in the 3rd round, and he's played 4 years, 3 years as the starting center at Ohio State, I think I could do it because he's played against Clemson. He's played against Alabama. He's played against, like, high-level, defenses, and he has been trained by really good coaches at Ohio State, like Landon Dickerson from Alabama. Now, I know he's got the knee injury, which was a question mark, but if Landon Dickerson was the starting center of the Tennessee Titans, I think he could pick it up. Mm-hmm. You're still putting more on Tannehill's plate and probably a little bit on Nate Davis or Roger Saffold to help the rookie center along, but you could do it. But no, I don't think what I know of Radins, and I'm not saying he's a dumb kid or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't think Dylan Radins could do that. So you asked me, would I be willing to do that? That's too big of a risk for me. And everything I keep asking like Joe wants to trade Janoris Jenkins, so now I'm going with Caleb Farley, Christian Fulton, and Elijah Molden at corner. I'm not willing to do that. That is too big of a risk. Like,
if Caleb Farley can play.
I'm not willing to give up a big pick for Julio in the cash before anything else after that. I'm not willing to do that.
Because I've also seen 2nd-round pick in Rashad Evans.
And?
Yeah.
I'm not giving up a 2nd-round pick. I'm not giving up a 2nd-round pick. Again, if I give you a 2nd-round or a 3rd-round pick, you're paying. If I give you a 5th or 6th, I'll pay. But I'm not doing either. I mean, honestly, I'm not risking it. But that's the first question is Julio. Then after Julio, there's all the other questions. And Floyd was smart enough to bring this up last year, and nobody wanted to listen when he brought it up. But it was, he said before they signed Clowney, what they were talking about in the office was, if we sign Clowney, then that means next year we won't be able to sign Jayon Brown or Jonnu Smith. And that's the discussion they're having. And that was the decision they made. And now Jonnu Smith is a Patriot. And the Titans literally do not have a tight end. So it's the same discussion. Everything I just said, I feel like with Julio, everything I just said, they're discussing, and I think that's too much. It's one thing to say we may not be able to bring Jonnu Smith back. It's another thing to have 9 questions that come off of acquiring one player who's on the wrong side of 30, has a huge contract, and got hurt last year. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're right back to your phones, your reaction. Again, I'm against it because there's so many layers to Julio, but that's what it would take, in my opinion. Redo Tannehill, redo Lewan, cut Saffold. What do you think? Plus, there was another indication, and I'm going to let Ian and Caroline decide, but I think there was another indication that tells me the Titans are not interested in Julio Jones. We'll get to that next. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on Stillman Company. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to get in. Go to thegamenashville.com and check out Nashville's best deals. This week, purchase a $100 gift card for $50 of downtown dollars. Hundreds of downtown businesses are ready to welcome you back, and with this downtown dollar special promotion, it's never been easier to shop, sip, and snack local while supporting your favorite businesses. Get yours now at thegamenashville.com. Stillman Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Coach, looking at your receiver group, I don't know that there's a specifically defined slot receiver. How do you feel about that group, and is that something that you would like to address in undrafted free agents?
We feel like we have slots there, Turron. I'm not sure if our evaluations of our receiving group are the same, but we got guys that have played in the slot for us, and we'll keep working guys around and give them opportunities.
That was Vrabel talking about, hey, we think we have slots. That was kind of like hey, I don't know how you evaluate our receivers, TD, but I know how we evaluate our receivers, TD, and I feel pretty good about it. We have some breaking news on the Julio front we'll get to in just 1 second. One tell, and you guys tell me if you think this is a legitimate tell or not. I watched Get Up this morning. Teddy Bruschi was part of the panel. Bruschi, Vrabel, longtime teammates, very good friends. Bruschi at no point hinted at the Titans making a run at Julio Jones. And I said, they're probably not interested. Because if they were, Vrabel probably would tell Bruschi, and Bruschi would be like, I think the Titans would be a good fit, Greeny. And he didn't. Am I reading too much into that?
I think so. But then again, we've also seen how some reporters may be tight with some people at the Titans and kind of making their campaign. So I'm not going to say it's totally out of the realm of a possibility, but I think that there are so many teams that have been swirled around in the Julio news. For example, there's 5 teams that are now on the books to acquire Julio. Patriots are minus 150, Titans plus 300, then you have 49ers, Green Bay, and the Ravens behind that. And then I've also heard the Browns, and I've also heard the Colts. So there have been so many teams in talks. So I think the fact that Teddy Bruschi didn't mention him, I don't think you can read too far into that.
Okay. Now here's what A.J. Brown sent Julio Jones on Instagram, and A.J. is, again, making the pitch. Here's what A.J. said.
Yo, Julio. Hey, man, check this out, man. Hey, you see the message above right here, bro. Come on, bro. Come vibe with me, bro. Hey, you know I'm good for it. You know all them talks we be having, you know what I'm saying? Bro, you know I'm good for it, bro. You know I got your back, bro. Trust me, bro. If you want to carry the load, you can carry it. But if you get tired, you know definitely, you know I'll carry you, bro. And another thing, you know I'm not giving my number up. I said I would. I tried to get number 1. They said I can't. So you're going to have to rock number 8. You already know all of this, but hey, just come mess with your boy, man. Hey, real talk, man. Hey, we waiting on you over here. You say you want to win, right? We just need a couple more pieces. Hey, trust me. Hey, come vibe with me, man.
So A.J. is all in on trying to convince Julio. Derrick Henry was working out with Julio this week. I mean, the smoke signals are there. I mean, the Titans players clearly want Julio Jones. I do wonder if I said to A.J. Brown, in order to do this, I got to get rid of Roger Saffold. I wonder how A.J. would feel. If I said it, now here's who I really care about. If I said it to Derrick Henry, in order to do this, I got to get rid of Roger Saffold. I wonder what Derrick would say. But again, the Titan players, they want Julio. If Julio was making $5 million, I'd love to have Julio Jones. But he's not. And because he's not, and he's worth 15.3 this year and 11.5 next year, and I got to give up something to get him, and I got to cut my left guard, and I got to commit to my injured left tackle. That's a little too much for me. Let's go to your phones again. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ryan is up next on Julio Jones. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Ryan.
All right, guys. I look at it like this. Stop trying to be the Preds. Just because there's a big name out there doesn't mean you got to go get him. I mean, how many draft picks have the Preds wasted on players just because of a name and it didn't come out to work? They signed Duchesne. Didn't really work until all of a sudden now. Don't go after a name. Keep what's working and then keep going with that. Keep with the prospects. Keep getting low guys. Keep the key guys. Don't try and blow it up just because you want a big name on the team. It is not worth it.
Ryan, I totally agree with you. And I think another thing that I really agree with, and I appreciate your call, I think something that I agree with most transactions like this is normally it needs to be at your price, not at their price. And even the Clowney thing that I just banged on last year, because you know how I felt about Clowney, that was still at their price. I mean, there was talk about Clowney at 18, 17, 21, and all of a sudden you sign him for 12 and a half. That's your price. And I'm okay with things at your price. $15.3 million for Julio Jones is not your price. It's like I bought a stock the other day. You know, cryptocurrency, is like a big thing up and down and up and down. And
It's a wild little ride we're on.
I got a little bit of crypto, not a lot. Like, I'm not really a big believer in it. Like, I believe in real estate. I believe in the stock market. I believe in owning companies that are good companies and they'll grow over time. So I put a buy-in on Coinbase last week.
Bad move. I've had Coinbase for a few weeks. It's not
The
doing so
stock?
hot. Yeah,
Well, see, you bought it when it was at the top.
I did.
See, you know what the difference was?
Because I thought that it was going to skyrocket.
So you know what happened was?
Up today.
I named my price. I waited for it to get to the bottom. They had the cryptocurrency sell-off, and I looked at that, and I looked at the analyst projections and the forecast, and I'm like, you know what? Cryptocurrency is going to have its moments where it completely sells off, and a stock like this is going to go down. But cryptocurrency, it's not – the end of cryptocurrency trading is not coming. In fact, it's just beginning. And Coinbase right now is the number one trader for cryptocurrency. So instead of buying at the IPO, it went down. Like, you're going to make – it'll go back up. It'll go back above. But I named my price on the Coinbase, basically, where I said, hey, this is low. And I see what the target is, and it's going to get back up there unless something crazy happens. So I went and bought it. And to your point, I mean, I think it's like up $15 a share today. It's going right back up. And so when you can name your price, it makes it easier. And that's where Julio, because of his contract and him not giving any money back, that's where it makes it almost impossible for me to see the Titans take him on. If the Titans could name their price like they did with DeMarco Murray, where they switched spots in the fourth round and they essentially turned DeMarco Murray's future years into voidable years so they could just cut him and move on, I'd do it. But again, that's when I get to name the price. Atlanta and Julio right now are playing for we name the price, you buy, and I don't believe in that. 615-737-1025. I feel bad that we kind of avoided the text line. Or I shouldn't say avoided, ignored. But we got to get to Mark Howard. Mark Howard's thoughts on game number 5 for the Preds and the Canes. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. And again, Jeff Schultz, longtime columnist in Atlanta, will be on Robbie and Rexrow tomorrow at 8:30 with his thoughts on Julio Jones. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Moving Companies delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. Big one tonight for the Predators, game number 5. And as I told you, you go back to the Predators' history with this group. Only once has this group, and I'm saying, since 2016, 2015-ish, have they been tied 2-2 in a series, lost game 5 and won the series. And that was 2016 against Anaheim, where they won the first 2 games. They lost the middle 3 games. And then after they lost the middle 3 games, they turned around and they won the last 2 games. That was it. They lost 5-2 in Game 5 against Anaheim. Every other scenario, they have won that Game 5, which was at Anaheim in the Western Conference Final, won the series. Everything else, San Jose lost Game 5, lost the series. Pittsburgh lost Game 5, lost the series. Winnipeg lost Game 5, lost the series. Dallas lost Game 5, lost the series. Here you are tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. Mark Howard joins us here on the program. So, Mark, first of all, I heard you this morning on with Robbie. I thought you guys were fantastic. I want to start, though, kind of with the can, because I think we learned that they can beat Carolina by beating them twice here at Bridgestone Arena. But clearly the crowds are playing a factor into this. Jacob Slavin might make his return today for the Hurricanes. Can the Predators get it done in Carolina tonight?
I think it's going to be tough. I think Slavin is going to play tonight. They've pretty much got him listed in the starting lineup, in fact, to be paired with Dougie Hamilton, the first defense pairing. It's just the way a series ebbs and flows, Jared. It's hard to beat a team. The way these teams are playing, it would be hard for the Preds to win 3 in a row, but that doesn't mean they can't. I just feel like the first 10 minutes of tonight will be key. I think Carolina is going to really come out, and ramp it up. And we'll see if the Predators can weather the storm. But I think the first 10 minutes of this game is important, because if Carolina scores a goal or 2, the Preds will be chasing them the rest of the night. I think we've sort of gotten past, at least for me, our initial opinions about these teams from the outset of the series. I think what we found out and what the media found out is that most of the media was wrong about these 2 teams. A lot of people thought that this series would be one-sided, and in a sense, sometimes it has been. But the Predators have found a way to hang close. Statistics be damned. I mean, Game 4, is an absolute example of it, and it just found a way to hang close in the most important stat, of course, on the ice, which is the scoreboard, and they're going to have to do that tonight.
So I heard you talking this morning about Matt Duchene, and I am starting to believe in Matt Duchene, at least right now, and that is put him up on that top line with skilled players. The effort he gave you is a lot better than the effort I feel like we've seen out of Matt Duchene for most of his Predators tenure. I think he put on some really nice moves in Game 3 and 4. Obviously, he had the game winner. I don't think they can do this without Matt Duchene. I have never thought they could do this without Matt Duchene. Hines has tried benching him. That didn't work. Hines has moved him down on lines. That didn't work. How much faith do you have in Matt Duchene, Mark Howard, that he can play like the player that he played this weekend?
I think it's been pretty evident the last 2 games that he's really thriving, playing with the best version of Ryan Johansson and Philip Forsberg. And, when they're playing this way, they seem to raise each other's level, and they get pretty good results. I don't know if it's been a matter of effort with Duchene. I think, there have been some bad outcomes. I think when you're as gifted as he is, sometimes it's hard. It's been hard for him for whatever reason to find that extra gear, and we saw it. I mean, we saw all of his strengths on display in Games 3 and 4 in Nashville: the speed, the power, the great hands, and now we want more. And I hope we see more. Otherwise, it's going to be just another frustrating episode with Duchene of him teasing us a little bit and then sort of turtling and going back into his shell.
What would you tell a Predators fan, Mark, if they said, Mark, please give me hope for tonight's game at Carolina? What would you tell that Predators fan?
If UC Soros makes it to the arena, I think they're in pretty good shape. He's been fantastic. I have no reason to believe he's going to be otherwise. This is the way that he played, the last couple of months of the season, and he's continued that into the playoffs. And Jared, we've seen in years past, teams play great down the stretch, and they're not that team in the playoffs. We've seen teams play indifferently down the stretch and play great in the postseason. Well, the Predators, every game for the last 2 months has been a playoff game. Every game for the last month of the season has been pretty close to an elimination game. So the Predators are comfortable, playing with that hanging over their heads. Carolina has not, though. And I think, in a sense, that's sort of an advantage for the Predators.
What would your percent chance that the Predators have to still win this series be? Because I put it at 20 going in, and then, everybody held serve. I'm staying with 20, even though the amount of games left has been reduced. What would you put the percent chances that you have at the Predators winning this series at?
I'd put it in the mid to high 30s. I think they've clearly got a better chance of winning this series than when they started. Listen, the playoff or the overtime games can be a little bit of a crapshoot. I mean, we know that. Sometimes the puck goes in, sometimes it doesn't. But the Predators, seem to really like living on the edge. And, they've responded. I don't think it's a fluke that this series is 2-2. But the Predators, definitely have to bring their A game to even have a chance to win every night. And they seem to, summon that up, especially the last 2 games.
What really bothers me, Mark Howard's our guest, what really bothers me, though, is when I look back to the series, and I was not a huge believer in the narrative, Mark, that came out after Game 2, which was, hey, our 5-on-5 was pretty good. Our power play was lousy, but our 5-on-5, we played pretty well. I mean, that didn't do it for me. But I will say that it was, a 1-0 game. It really was. And then they had the empty netter and then the other goal, but it was really a 1-0 game. That was very close in Game 2. It was obviously incredibly close, razor's edge thin in Games 3 and 4. Jacob Slavin did not play in Games 2, 3, or 4. The one game where I feel like everybody says, yes, Carolina was the better team. Yes, Carolina won, just unanimously, was the one he played. Am I wrong for looking at the direct cause and effect of, oh, no, if Slavin plays today, then it probably is more like Game 1 than it would be like Game 2, 3, or 4?
Possibly. It's going to be a lot harder for the Predators to get to the net when Slavin's out there. And let's be honest, they've been getting to the slot and to the net with impunity without him there. They've just created a lot more, scoring chances, and they've done a good job on the counterattack. They have found a way to sort of pick their spots and take an advantage of that. Well, Slavin, is going to be someone who's going to make that a lot more difficult. So the Predators are going to have to figure out, their way around this. But with Slavin in there, it makes Carolina better, and the Predators don't need Carolina that much better because let's be honest, if the scoreboard played the stats in Game 4, that would have never gone into overtime, but it did. And that's the beauty of sports. A lot of times, shots on goal and scoring chances don't always translate into what they should. And that's what the Preds are going to need tonight.
Mark Howard is our guest. I am torn between how my heart feels and my head feels. And I want Mark's thoughts on that. We'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025. You got text questions for Mark Howard on the Preds. Get it in at 615-737-1025. Big game number 5 tonight, Stillman Company. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. And, of course, we are streaming on the Game Nashville app. Let me tell the fine folks out there, about how important it is to tell them that Race Fans, the iconic Indy 500, is this Sunday, and the Big Machine Vodka Music City Grand Prix, along with 102.5 The Game, invites you to our official Indy 500 watch party at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Come watch the race, win Music City Grand Prix tickets and swag, plus check out the Big Machine Vodka Indy racing car on display. There will be great drink specials from your friends at Bud Light Seltzer and live music all day long. It's the Big Machine Vodka Music City Grand Prix Indy 500 watch party this Sunday at 11 a.m. at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Stillman Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. ESPN 102.5 The Game is your home for game number 5 tonight, the Predators and the Canes. And it was very simple for me before the start of the series. I said Canes in 5. And as I said, I'm the only person here who can't be right. Caroline, Canes in 6. Ian, Canes in 6. Caroline, has since said that she thinks it's kind of more Canes in 7 now. But Ian's staying with Canes in 6. But I'm the only one who can't be right. But I just had a gut feeling before every game. Pick the Canes in game 1, pick the Canes in game 2, pick the Preds in game 3, pick the Preds in game 4. My heart says, this Preds team, it feels like the other night it felt special. It felt like it was something. It felt like they were headed in the right direction. And my head says, it's going to be so hard to win in Carolina. It was hard to win at home. It's going to be so hard to win at Carolina. Those fans were just as loud and rowdy and boisterous as the fans here. The power play is a mess. They get the last change. Jacob Slavin's probably going to play. To ask Saros to do what he's done before is going to be a little tough. My head says, Canes. And I just don't know how I feel. Mark Howard joins us. So, Mark, I don't want you to decide for me, but I want you to say what you feel is probably more accurate. The heart feeling of the momentum the Predators have from their emotional wins at home, or the head feeling that I described about all the things that would make it tough for them to win against Carolina?
Well, the momentum's a funny thing because I think, once they skate out on the ice with all those Caniacs, I think Carolina will, it's sort of on them for the first 10 minutes. It doesn't mean that the Predators, just go into a shell and just play totally defensive. But I think the Predators can sort of maintain the momentum if they get through the first part of this game. Because obviously the crowd is going to be in Carolina's favor. And I got to say this too, Jared. John Hines has been absolutely fantastic in this series. And we were talking to Chris Mason today, Predators TV analyst, of course. And I said to Chris, Chris, it takes a real set of cojones to pair Alexander Carrier with Roman Josi to blow up your D pairings and then put Ellis with Matthias Ekholm. I mean, I don't think Laviolette would have ever done that. And most coaches would have stayed with a pat hand, especially with their D pairing, especially if they're the inferior team. And Hines has been unbelievable in some of the moves that he's made in showing us, just the sense that he has about his roster and about his players. And also having the guts, frankly, to take Johansson and Duchesne off the power play to motivate them. I mean, let's face it, that's what it is. And it's probably a short-term thing. But he has, found a way to push this team's buttons in a very positive way. And so far, he's gotten an amazing result, from this team through 4 games.
By the way, you just brought this up, and Mark Howard, I kind of have a bone to pick because I heard it this morning. You talking about John Hines. I think Hines has done an okay job this series. I think Hines is a good coach. I think he proved that he was a good coach this season. Great coach, we'll see. Good coach, yeah, I think Hines is a good coach. I thought he so out-coached himself or over-coached with the lineup in Game 1. Not that I thought it was criminal or anything like that, but I thought it was pretty evident to me that Arvidsson didn't have much left in the tank. I couldn't stand Goodbranson out there. I still can't stand Harper out there. I wonder why they won't put Fabro. I think Hines is. I think he's done an okay job. I hear you talking about Hines, and I feel like we're not watching the same coach. So I'm glad you brought that up because I so disagreed with you on that one this morning, Mark.
Yeah, well, you want to know something? It to me shows you that he's a guy who's not afraid to try something different. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy, who's afraid to admit that what he put out there at the beginning of the series wasn't right. I've known a lot of coaches that would go down with the ship, and he didn't just change his lineup. He changed the DNA of this team. When he switched Ellis off with Josi and decided to put him with Ekholm. So you have the right to your opinion, but I think what he did was pretty gutsy, and it has certainly paid off. And not a lot of coaches would have done what he did.
The one thing that I will give Hines a lot of credit for, and I think Carrier has played really well in this series, But I felt like I said Friday night before Game 3 that I felt like this was the last chance for the 2017 crew. Johansson and maybe even Ellis and Arvidsson if he was in the lineup and kind of that group. And I kind of felt like if they get knocked out by the Canes tonight and they lose in 4 or 5 games, David's going in there with a sledgehammer. If he's still the general manager in the offseason, David's going in there with a sledgehammer and kind of knocking it all apart. And then Johansson all of a sudden played better, and Duchesne all of a sudden played better, and Ellis played better. I think that was in large part to your point about the D pairings. I do wonder if Hines has the approach of they're going to fire the players before they fire me, so I can push Matt Duchesne and I can push Ryan Johansson, whereas maybe other coaches would say, well, I don't want to anger the star players too much because then it'll be me who's out. And I wonder if that has allowed Hines, because I will say this, he has pushed Duchesne. And he's benched in the last week. No, the last 2 weeks, he's benched Matt Duchesne at Columbus. He played Matt Duchesne in the meaningless game. He shot down Matt Duchesne's idea of being on the top line. He then put him onto the top line and took him off the power play. Duchesne may not be playing like a star, but he does make a star. He does have a star's contract. And Hines has not been afraid to push him. And I don't know, to your point, if that's because he knows the players are getting fired before he gets fired, or if, to your point, Mark, that's the kind of guy John Hines is, that is, hey, I will do what I think is best for the team, and I don't care whose feelings it hurts.
Yeah, I don't think he's worried about who's coming and who's going. He's trying to win a series, and I think that he's not afraid to think outside the box. I don't care what you say about any of this, but I never saw Alexander Carrier as being a first-pairing defenseman, especially in the playoffs. And now all of a sudden, Alexander Carrier is going to be an important part of the Predators' future. Think about this, Jared. Now, all of a sudden, how does David Poile, think through how he's going to assemble this roster in terms of the expansion draft and who he's going to protect and who he's not going to protect? Because all of a sudden, protecting Carrier has become a priority, although he's on his first contract, so it's not as big a deal. But the way he looks at the future with Fabro and Ferentz, all of a sudden those guys look like they're going to be, in the third pair next year. And all of a sudden the future of this franchise looks a little bit different. The other thing about this is that I think it's important not to be a prisoner of the moment.
Sure.
And who knows? I mean, everybody's asking what this, is going to mean for Duchesne and for Johansson. I don't know. We've been through periods where both of these guys have played well, especially Johansson. So I don't know, what that means for next season. And he's got to think about Grantland and other things. But I will say this. I think what happened in games 3 and 4, at least in the minds of Sean Henry and the ownership, that it justified them not trading, not being sellers at the trade deadline, because they got a fuller building, because they got the engagement from their fans. I think they're season ticket holders, and you can't always please your fans, but I think they got what they wanted out of this postseason. They're going to get 3 games. They're going to get, of course, Smashville reestablished, the atmosphere at Bridgestone Arena. And that's really what they were looking for, because it really hasn't been there even in the last few years. I mean, obviously last year, because of COVID-19. But that building is loud again because this team is overachieving. And that hasn't happened since 2017. And I don't think this team is going to go as far as that team, but there is that feeling again in the building. And I think ownership wanted to get that from their customers, and I think they're getting that.
Mark Howard, as always, he is one of the best. It was great hearing you this morning with Robbie. As always, Mark, appreciate you. Enjoy the game. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure, guys.
Yep, Mark Howard joining us on the program. And Mark is probably right about, and I said this about being in the stands for 3 and 4. it felt like when the Preds had their success after 17, and I'm not knocking the Predators because I've always said it's not NashvillePredators.org, right? Like it's not it's not a nonprofit business. It is a for-profit business. And ticket prices went up in 2018. And there were people in town that were just bashing the Predators left and right for raising ticket prices. And, oh, my God. And I said, hey, I don't love it either. But as a ticket holder, I don't love it either. But that's their business. But when they did that, it felt like the crowd became a little bit more corporate. And I would argue that in 18 to 19, there was kind of a being seen element to being at Bridgestone Arena. Like people were there because they wanted to be seen like it was a Laker game or something. And it felt like it was the less corporate crowd in there for games 3 and 4. I'm just saying. And I think that that's a big feeling that everybody was glad to have back. 615-737-1025. By the way, Joe Rexroad has texted me. This is what bothers me about the Julio Jones stuff. Help me out here. So, Joe rather trade away Janoris Jenkins to Atlanta in order to make a trade for Julio Jones. So he wants to trade Josh Reynolds, Rashawn Evans, and Janoris Jenkins in order to get. Now I don't know exactly how much money Jenkins is making, but Reynolds is making 1.75. So in order to make these salaries work, you're gonna have to get Atlanta to take on a bunch of money to make that kind of thing work. But I said to him, "Who's playing cornerback this year if you trade Janoris Jenkins?" And he said, the cornerbacks are Farley, Fulton, Molden, and Kevin Johnson. You only do it if you feel good about the rookies. How can you feel good about Fulton coming off of a back injury, or Farley coming off of a major back injury, Fulton coming off of an injury season, Molden coming off of an injury, and the fact that none of these guys have played in the NFL? And then he said, this is what got me. I do know I don't want Aaron Brewer as a starter, though. And I said, Dylan Radins? He said, oh, so career backup Kendall Lamb at right tackle. Good plan. They're playing a backup at right tackle this year anyway. Kendall Lamb or Ty Sambrilo is playing right tackle. I don't think the plan is for Dylan Radins to play right tackle. I think the plan is for Dylan Radins to sit on the bench, just like Isaiah Wilson.
Which is okay.
But just like Isaiah Wilson was supposed to sit on the bench, I think that's the plan. Just like Taylor Lewan sat on the bench as a rookie. I think that's the plan with Dylan Radins. And I'm okay. To your point, I'm okay with it.
That's fine. I mean, he played one game in the 2020 season. And before that, I mean, he's playing in not the big leagues. So I think it's okay. And that does not discredit his talent, who he is, or what he does, because I'm sure he's incredibly talented. And I've heard nothing but good things about Dylan Radins.
I've heard bad things.
Well,
Trevor Match don't like him.
Okay, that's fair. I've heard a lot of good things about him. Let's say that.
Well, everyone always says good things when you get drafted. You know, it's never like...
Okay.
I'm just saying.
All right.
I'm just saying. But here's the bigger thing. Joe is willing to sacrifice at corner because he doesn't want to sacrifice at left guard? Does this guy know football?
I'm not willing to sacrifice anything on the defense.
I know Basketball Joe, sometimes he gets too carried away with basketball. You know, he thinks Jerry Stackhouse is a good coach, which we know is not true, and he thinks Rick Barnes is a great coach, and we know that Rick Barnes has his problems. Does Joe Rexroad understand football? That he is more willing to expose himself at corner than he is at left guard? Come on, Joe. Oh, my goodness. Ugh. Yeah, Rex rant this, Joe.
I mean,
he's more worried about Aaron Brewer. Aaron Brewer played one game at left guard. He was great. Derrick Henry had like a 39-yard run to win the game, and they were great, and they won, and Brewer was fine. And Joe is more worried about that guy than he is about putting the three guys out at corner, three guys that have never played meaningful time in the NFL.
We don't even know if he can play.
We don't even know if Farley can walk. I mean, come on. 615-737-1025. Oh, goodness gracious, Joe. And I love Joe. But come on, Joe. 3 up, 3 down. 3 things we want to see from the Preds, 3 things we don't want to see. That's next. Stillman Company right here. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The game 2 hours until puck drop, 1 hour until the pregame show. Get you set and ready to go. Game number 5, this is the money game. You win this game, you're probably going to win the series. You lose this game, you're probably going to lose the series. I think it's as simple as that. But we got a loaded hour. Hal Gill in 25 minutes will join us with his thoughts on game number 5. So let's just get right into 3 up, 3 down, 3 things we want to see from the Predators and 3 things we don't want to see tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Number 1.
Survive the storm. Mark Howard just talked about it, and I'm not saying it because they're the Hurricanes, though I guess that is in theory a pun.
That's a good one.
Thank you. But the first 10 minutes tonight, it's going to be pucks on net, and it ain't going to be the net you want them to be on. You are going to get the best shot from the Carolina Hurricanes. I think Jacob Slavin is playing tonight. I think they will be energized by the fact that Slavin is in there. And I think the first 10 minutes tonight is going to be one of those games where it will feel like an onslaught. Game 2, 2017 of the first round, the Preds played the Blackhawks at the United Center. They had stolen game 1. And people remember that they won that game 5-0. But the first 3 minutes of the game, it felt like Chicago got 15 shots on net. I mean, they were coming. And then all of a sudden, Ryan Ellis fires one at the net. Arvidsson jump screens. It goes right in. Preds are up 1-0, and they had all the momentum from there. That kind of feels like this game tonight. If you can survive the initial storm and then take the lead, I think you got a shot. If you can survive the initial storm and maybe be down 1 goal, you got a shot. If this is like Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final at Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh gets a penalty right off the jump and scores 1 minute, 31 seconds into the game, and they lead 3-0 after 1, and they lead 6-0 after 2, you're going home to face elimination. So watch out. You're getting their best shot. I know we feel good about the momentum, but as coaches always say, the more desperate teams are the ones who play better in the playoffs. You're getting Carolina's best shot to start the game. Survive the storm.
Number 2.
Out-hit the Canes. You got to out-hit them. In the first 2 games of the series, the Canes were +7 in Game 1. They were +13 in hits in Game 2. I know we always look at shots, but I think hits are a big deal when it comes to Carolina. Carolina +7 in Game 1, +13 in Game 2. Preds +1 in Game 3. Preds -1 in Game 4. That's the kind of game you want to play. You need to out-hit the Hurricanes. And again, it can be by 1 or it can be even, but it can't be Canes +13. You cannot allow them to out-hit you. Now, I will say, I think one of the reasons that the Canes probably hit you 13 more times in Game 2 is because they spent an entire period on the penalty kill. So I would guess that would make some sense. But again, just because the Predators don't want to run every physical guy out there like they tried to in Game 1, I think this guy's stupid, but just because they don't want to do that doesn't mean they don't want to play a physical game. I think if we've got to give Nick Cousins credit for anything, it's that he has brought that physicality while being a solid two-way player and contributing on the power play since he's been inserted back into the lineup. But again, you got to out-hit the Canes, and back to the first key, the surviving the storm, they're going to come out, they're going to hit you hard. They are going to hit you real hard. Now, maybe they end up in the box. Maybe you can take advantage of it like you did at Bridgestone Arena, but I think that you're going to need to play some physical hockey, and Carolina is a physical team. They've got to out-hit the Canes.
Number 3.
How could I forget about the Do More crew? The Do More crew has got to do more. I think they need to score 3 times tonight. So, Johansson, Duchesne, Granlund, Ellis, I think the combination of those guys, I'm going to put Forsberg in the Do More crew too, even though we don't complain about him as much as we do the other guys. That grouping needs to score 3 times tonight. I think you can maybe count on a goal from somebody else. Cousins, Tolvanen, Yarncroke, Sissons, somebody like that. But the Do More crew, look, the Do More crew is going to be what carries this team offensively. Either the Do More crew does it or you go home. And so, to me, I think 3 goals from the Do More crew tonight because I think Carolina's bringing their A game, and I don't think Saros can keep them to 1 or 2. So I'm looking at the Do More crew to give me 3 goals tonight. Is that too much to ask?
No, I think that's fair. And one thing that I had thought about was today I need to see the same things that I saw in games 3 and 4. I need to see the Do More crew. I need to see UC Saros make some incredible saves. UC Saros can't do much more than what he's been doing. Game 1, 2, I don't remember. 2 wasn't his best.
No, 1 wasn't his best.
1 wasn't his best.
2
he was great. 1 wasn't his best. 3 and 4 he looked outstanding.
Although 3 he let that Pesci goal in, then that can't happen tonight.
Correct. But I need to see consistency from them plus some. Because they barely squeaked by in games 3 and 4 for doing what they should be doing. So now I got to see more. The stakes are
3
higher.
Goals.
The game is in Raleigh. Things just mean more in this game. So I need to see the Do More crew do more than they have been doing.
3 goals from the Do More crew. That's what I'm saying. So again, the first 3 things we want to see: survive the storm, out hit the Canes. 3 goals from the Do More crew. 3 things we don't want to see tonight. We start at the top.
Number 1.
No dumb penalties. Eric Howla.
That was the very first thing I wrote.
Penalties. Look, puck over the glass. I don't love it. You go on the kill. Hooking in the corner, tripping in the corner. I don't love it. You go on the kill. Clipping a guy in the face with the butt of your stick. Dumb penalty. Tripping a guy after he hits you, just coming up and tripping him, short of a slew foot. Dumb penalty. Ekholm did it in game 3. They got to stop with that now. I mean, I get, somebody told me yesterday, well, Eric Halla was just trying to, when he got that stupid penalty for roughing to start game number 2, he was just trying to bait the Canes into a penalty. Well, he did a pretty bad job of it. So guess what? No dumb penalties, and I'm really looking at Eric Halla because the crowd is going to be calling for him, and Halla has made this personal. And I said yesterday, and I stand by it, I don't care about Eric Halla's drama when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes. Let me explain something. Caroline Fenton, I don't know who you have drama with in your life. I don't know. I'm sure you have drama with somebody in your life, somebody you don't like, something you used to do, work for.
I like to think that I'm a pretty mellow person, but I'm sure there is someone out there.
If you had somebody on your payback list, I have no problem with you having a payback list.
I don't have one.
But if you had somebody on your payback list, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
But if you screw up this kind of show, a playoff show, because you got to worry about your payback list, now I got a problem with that. Because I don't care about your payback list. You want to get somebody on July 17th on this radio show with your payback list, knock yourself out.
That is my birthday.
That's for you and them. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's for you and them. Whatever you want to do, knock yourself out. But not this kind of show. And that's the way I feel about Eric Halla. Nothing stupid. And that applies to everybody, but he has been the violator of dumb penalties in this series. So cut it out. Second thing.
Number 2.
I do not want to see Carolina with shorthanded opportunities. They thrive on it, and the Predators were fantastic in 3 and 4. And if they weren't getting looks on the power play, they weren't giving Carolina shorthanded opportunities. So no shorthanded opportunities tonight for Carolina because Carolina had about 10 shorthanded opportunities in game number 2. We know Aho loves to get out there. We know they love to move the puck out, especially if Slavin's playing tonight. They love to just fire the puck out and get those guys going down the ice, and especially Aho. And I just no shorthanded opportunities tonight because they took advantage of that in game 2.
Number 3.
And this is what I'm calling the Ben Harper one. Failing to get the puck out of their own zone. Now, Harper's not the only violator of this by any means, though he is the biggest when it comes to the Predators' inability at times, it feels like, to get the puck out of the zone. It feels like when Nashville, when they get down there, and Adam Vigan asked John Hines a question about this today as far as offensive zone time was concerned, and he kind of asked, okay, in the offensive zone, they have a way more time than the Predators do. Why? And the truth is, because when the Predators get down there, they get one crack at it, and if they don't, a white jersey in Nashville or a black jersey tonight is right there, and they get that baby out, and they go. And with the Predators, it's like they're unsure of how to get the puck out because the Carolina forecheck is so strong. And especially when Harper and Benning are out there, which is on the penalty kill, which you know I hate, but when they're out there, those guys struggle to get the puck out of their own zone. So tonight, it may not be pretty. just get the freaking thing past the blue line. That's all I ask. Get it out. Just get it out of the zone. So those are our 3 things. 3 things we want to see. Survive the storm, out-hit the Canes. The Do-More crew's got to score 3 goals today. The 3 things we don't want to see, nothing stupid as far as penalties are concerned, no Carolina shorthanded opportunities, and do not fail to get the puck out of your own zone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tough day for me in gambling yesterday. Solid 1-3. Whereas Caroline Fenton went a nice little 3-1. So
may not have a Jared Stillman 1 shirt after all.
Keep talking. We'll see. We'll see. We'll get to that coming up next. Carolines, and again, we will pick the Preds game. I don't know what I still don't know how I feel.
I've been
about the
thinking about it all day, and I don't feel confident picking anything.
Well, we'll have to decide
We're going
at the end
to,
of the show.
but
But Carolines is next. Stillman Company. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. So Adam Vinkin is super sketchy. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how sketchy this is. Adam Vinkin does not follow me on Twitter, and yet every time that I tweet something that, like, I know Preds fans are going to jump all over. Like, if I tweet, like, oh, they got to get Grimaldi out of the game, and then Rocco scores an hour later, Adam quote tweets it, and everyone gets, oh, yeah. And now Adam does not follow me on Instagram, but he looks at my Instagram stories, which means he's literally going out of his way to search for my Instagram, at the Jared Stillman, by the way, if you don't follow it.
Oh, shameless plug.
But he's literally going out of his way to look at my Instagram to follow it.
Leave Adam Vinkin out of this.
No.
Let him make his own social media practices.
Adam Vinkin needs to leave me alone. He needs to either follow me on Instagram or stop looking at my stories.
Twitter isn't weird because, like, I like and interact with a lot of accounts that I don't follow.
You said it was sketch during the break. Now you're changing your tune.
Well, the stories...
Because you didn't think I was going to call him out.
The stories are a little sketch.
Sketch. Hey, sometimes you gotta get called out. I love Adam. Sometimes you gotta get called out.
The tweets aren't sketch. He follows me on Twitter.
You know, I've noticed this. The people that, like, love the Predators, like the people that like, are Predators people, but they, like, love the Predators, like, I don't think any of them follow me. The team doesn't follow me.
Team follows me.
Yeah, like, the team doesn't follow me. So I've been unfollowed by the Predators. I've been unfollowed by the Titans. Like, I just think, you know what?
Sheesh.
Somebody right here's got to tell the truth. So I'm glad it's me. And, you know, sometimes that means you get booed by
Maybe you just don't have good Twitter content.
I think we hired somebody to help with that.
Not your personal Twitter.
No,
I'm not in charge of your personal Twitter.
I think it's certainly part of the equation that we have the best digital product we can have. Speaking of product we can have, the gambling product, Caroline's. I got too excited about going 2-0 in the month, although I'm still up 2-0. Yesterday, I struggled 1-3. Not a good day for me. I picked the Padres. They got crushed. Update from Twitter. Adam Vinkin followed you back. Update from Twitter. Breaking news. Adam Vinkin, after getting called out, has now followed me on Twitter.
Is that what it takes nowadays?
Yes, and now we got the breaking news sounder and everything. I took the Miami Heat. That was stupid. Oh, my goodness. I also took the Lightning. They lost. Shocking. Winnipeg got it done. You took Winnipeg, too. You got the Brewers on the money line, the Bucks on the money line. It's time for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Now I'm getting cold taked by my high school English teacher. I just want everybody to know that.
What'd she say? What did he or she say?
Something about the Atlanta Braves, but it was like, oh, you still think so-and-so sucks now? Like, yes, I do. Please, floor is yours.
Speaking of baseball, we've got Reds, Nats tonight.
Talk about two teams that stink.
I'm going to rock with my high school hometown hero, Max Scherzer, and the Nats. I'm going to take the Nats on the money line. So Max Scherzer, Nationals ace, got a 2.25 ERA. In his last 5 starts with Cincinnati, he is 5-0 with a 1.06 ERA. The Reds, on the other hand, have Tyler Mahle out on the mound. He's got a 4.2 ERA, only lasted 2 innings against the Giants in his last start, and he's given up 5 home runs in his last 4 starts. Cincinnati has lost 6 of their last 7 games. Rocking with the Nats on this one.
I think I'm going to go with the Reds just because in order to make up the deficit, I'm going to have to get some, like I'm going to have to go against you. I would take the Nats in normal times. I would take the Nationals to win this game. Every time, though, a guy gets rocked, and it's like, oh, he didn't get out of the second inning in his last start. Usually you see that guy go out there and throw a better game next time. Now, again, it's Max Scherzer, and I don't think the Reds are very good, but I'm going to take the Reds on the money line simply because, one, I think well, wait a minute. What's the run total here? Because I think I may take the Reds plus whatever the runs are. But
I believe it's either 5.5 or 6, but I'll...
No, not the over-under. Like, Reds plus how many runs?
I'll check.
Because I may take that, but I just, every time a guy throws a bad game, he usually follows it up with a pretty decent game. And, again, I've got to make up...
1.5.
Give me the Reds plus 1.5.
All right.
That way I feel a little better about it.
That's minus 108. Nationals money line is minus 220, so not great odds there. But
no, not great odds at all. What's next?
We've also got Leafs Canadians tonight, and my track record with the Leafs has not been great, but this was my only option. So I'm going to take the Leafs money line. The Leafs have a 2-1 lead, and they won 2-1 last night. Jack Campbell, the Leafs net minder, stopped 28 of 29 shots against the Canadiens last night. On the other hand, the Canadiens have Carey Price in net. He's 33 years old. Started the game last night. I'm not calling him old. I'm just saying the older you get, the harder it is to bounce back, and having 2 games back-to-back may be a little bit rough. He hasn't had a ton of rest after last night, so I'm going to take the Leafs money line. Not that goaltending is everything, but I just think the Leafs are a better team.
I'll take the Leafs on the money line, too. I took the Canadiens the first game because of Carey Price and because the Leafs choke in the playoffs, but I just think the talent discrepancy between the two teams is so much. I'm going to take the Leafs. And let me say this again for the record. I'm struggling now. Now that I've seen games with people in the stands, I'm struggling with the no crowds in the Canadian games.
It's eerie to watch.
It is tough.
It's like, very scary.
It's like 2020's over, babe. Like moving on. So.
I have bad PTSD flashbacks from November, October, whenever it was. Also, we have Lakers Suns tonight. And the Suns just rolled over the Lakers in their last game. But I'm going to take the Suns plus 1.5. Chris Paul left the game early. Left game 1 early. He only scored 7 points, so it's not going to be a huge loss if he's not out on the court tonight. But I could see the Suns resting him. It's only game 2. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton were absolutely incredible in game 1. Ayton had 21 points. Devin Booker with 34. But I think the Lakers are going to get it done today. I don't see this Lakers LeBron team going down 2-0 to the Suns. LeBron's teams are 12-8 after losing game 1.
Did you tell me you're taking the Suns plus 1.5?
Taking the Suns plus 1.5, but I do think the Lakers are going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take the Lakers on the money line.
Okay.
I think the Lakers are just going to win. Like, I don't think that.
So it's
Suns plus 1.5. Like, if.
Minus 106.
If the Lakers win by 5, you lose.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be a very close game.
You literally think it's going to be a 1-point game?
I think so, yeah.
Or the Suns are going to win?
Correct.
I'll take the Lakers on the money line. I feel safer about that one.
All right. Minus 130.
I also think this is a league that doesn't want to see the Lakers go down 2-0. And then, again, the idea of resting somebody in game 2 of the playoffs, like, seriously, basketball.
He left the game with an injury.
Basketball is such a soft sport. Speaking of soft in basketball, give me the Nets. Give me the Nets. And I will go Nets money line. I think the Nets get it done against the Celtics. I think the Celtics stink. Give me the Nets.
I'm going to take the Nets money line, too. That feels obvious. And the spread is 9.
Yeah.
Don't feel confident taking the Nets minus 9.
I don't, just because it's basketball.
Right.
We will pick the Preds, the outcome, the over-under, and the money line. Well, I guess that's the outcome, but whatever. We will do that as part of Predators Game Day. Hal Gill will join us coming up next, right here on Stillman Company. Speaking of Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, I absolutely love those guys. They are fantastic, and they are huge Predator supporters. You know, because of Preds home games, that Hiller logo is right there smiling on that ice, especially after a couple double overtime wins. Hiller also loves tax credit for energy-efficient homes, and those systems are back this year. When you put Energy Star certified equipment in your home, you'll earn a tax credit with the IRS. This month, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical is helping you keep more money in your pocket and doubling that tax credit when you purchase select new HVAC systems or tankless water heaters. And they're offering special financing so you make no payments until next year. Visit happyhiller.com for all of the details. As always, with Hiller, happy you'll be or the service is free. And I know this because I use Hiller myself. They take a great care of my house. They do a great job. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Hal Gill next. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving pregame show in 25 minutes. Preds and Canes in an hour and a half. Game number 5. And as I said, this is the money game. And I don't know how I feel. Only one time since this group's been together, the 2015 and on group, have they lost a Game 5, tied 2-2 and won the series. That was the first round, 2016 at Anaheim. They lost Game 5. They won Game 6 in Nashville. They won Game 7. Pecorine stole in Anaheim. So it's possible if they lose, but generally speaking, when they go in tied 2-2 and they lose Game 5 like they did Pittsburgh, like they did San Jose, like they did Winnipeg, like they did Dallas, they normally go on to lose the series. And I do not know how to feel. My gut tells me the Predators are going to win today. My head tells me the Canes are going to win today. And I guess it's tough for me. Hal Gill joins us now on the program, presented by Dunkin's brand new location in Belmead, Dunkin' Donuts, and by TriStar Movers, TriStar Moving with 5-star service. Hal, I look at this series and I think in Nashville it has been razor thin in terms of the difference between the two teams. In Carolina, it feels like the Canes have had a little bit more of an advantage. That makes me very nervous, but the Predators have the momentum in the series. What do we make of the momentum versus what we've seen of the Canes at home?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, Jared, we need to know, are we going to go with your head or with your gut? Like, what's going to happen? And I need to know. The problem is, honestly, we don't know what's going to happen. We got to see this thing out, and that's the only way you do it. And as a player, you're thinking, all the stats, and everyone's going to throw the stats, but you don't know. Like there could be a bad bounce in the first period, first shift. The puck could bounce over someone's stick, and boom, it's 1-0. Sure. And either way, like that's the beauty of this game is. You don't know how this is going to go, and you could do everything right and still lose a game. You could do everything wrong and somehow find a way to win a game. In the end, it's a game, and that's the reason why you play seven of them, so that you can find out who the real winner is. But on any given puck drop, anything can happen. So we'll have to see how this goes. I will say every playoff game as a player, you go in as a must-win. You don't go in being like, let's see if we can steal one. You look at it as a must-win, especially on the road. You have that killer mentality where we want to go and get this one. So I expect a strong performance from both teams, really. I think this should be an awesome game.
The Do More crew has done more since Game 3 started. That's Johansson, Duchesne, Ellis, the guys that need to start doing more. Why have they played, and really Johansson and Duchesne, why did they play better in 3 and 4, and is it sustainable in 5 and the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think, they're playing, it's not like they're doing anything crazy. They're playing with speed. They're getting their feet moving. They're churning through the neutral zone. If you get Matt Duchesne attacking with speed, he's such a good player. If he's not moving his feet, he becomes average at best. And he's a lot driven by that foot speed. And Johansson's not too far from that either. And those guys have been working hard. I appreciate the effort that they're given. And when they do that, they're tough players to play against. As a defenseman, those guys coming at you with speed, they can make plays. And so you back off and you give them a little bit more space. And with that space, they can be productive. And so, they've been good. And it's kind of funny. The Preds have really gotten where they are without them. And so you throw them and you say, we were looking at the beginning of this series, like Carolina's good. Like, are we going to be able to compete with this team? Because a really good team. And we've made this series as even as it could be. Even games 1 and 2 where I thought Yossi and Ellis didn't have a strong game. Duchesne and Johansson weren't there. They still were competitive. They were in those games tight right into the third period. Now you're looking at it going, anything is possible because they have really everyone clicking. Granlund and Cunnin, the combinations that they've set up each other for have been awesome. The beast line is going out and doing their job. You have everyone to a man doing their job, and that's when teams can have a lot of fun and get things going.
What do you make of Jacob Slavin? I think he plays tonight. Brenda Moore, you're a former player. You played against Brenda Moore. He only played in the league for 500 years. You played in there for about 400. Brenda Moore said after the game that, you take Jacob Slavin off any team. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. You take him off any team, and they're going to miss him. And I'm used to coaches saying, hey, it's always next man up. It's not about one guy, which makes me think Slavin's playing. He was on the ice for morning skate, which makes me think Slavin is playing. What kind of an impact does that have in the lineup?
I remember one time I was in Montreal, and I had an injury the day before, and I went out for warm-up, and I said, I can't do it. I can't. I literally cannot skate. And one of the assistant coaches came over and was like, what do you mean you can't do it? Just get out there. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be good. And that's the hard part is anyone can go out and say, okay, I'm going to play, but if you're not good enough, why don't you let someone else come in and play for you? The problem is I think there's a big drop-off with Slavin out. And you look at other players that have been taxed, Pesce and Shea, as good as they've just been getting beat down. They're playing huge minutes, especially with 2 double overtime games. To be shorthanded and make up those minutes is not easy. So I think they'd love to have Slavin, even if he's, you look at percentages. Is he 70%? Is he 80%? He's not going to know until he gets out there. A lot of times the adrenaline pumps through you and you get back to 100% or close to it. I don't know if that's the case. So we'll have to see. If he does get in the lineup, can the Preds take advantage of a lesser Slavin? I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. That's a big storyline because that changes the matchups. It changes the workload that those other defensemen have. Can they be better? I think Brett Pesce has been awesome this series. He's just been asked to do a lot. And if you take a little off his plate, is he that much better? We'll have to wait and see. And I'm sure John Hines has a different game plan as Slavin is in.
Hal Gill, our guest, presented by Duncan and TriStar Movers. Hal, I get what you're talking about, workload for defensemen, and I get it. And John Hines has done a nice job of kind of evening out the ice time and not overtaxing guys. But I am a little bothered because every time the Predators take a penalty and I see Harper and Benning hop over the boards, I get a little frustrated. Roman Yossi's making $9 million, and I watch Boston play, and McAvoy is on the first power play unit, he's on the first penalty kill unit, and he almost never comes off the ice. And McAvoy is a good player. Yossi is a good player, and he will not play him on the penalty kill. And I look at Ben Harper, and Ben Harper cannot get the puck out of his own zone, and Brenda Moore gets to control the matchups. So I get frustrated with that third pair, and I get worried about the third pair getting exposed, specifically Harper. Benning's been pretty good. Specifically Harper, I get really, really worried tonight. What do you think? And should they put Fabro in the lineup? Because they obviously don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it's kind of like the power play. Hines has taken off, arguably your best power play guys in Johansson and Duchesne because they weren't kind of fitting the role of what they needed. And I think the power play needs a more direct line, and I think you could put Roman Yossi out. He's going to be great in any situation he does, but I've really been impressed. Benning has played great, I think. Harper is a big body. Great. He's going to block shots. He's going to battle. So I just think you put those guys out there, and everyone has a role. And that's when you're on a good team, it's hard to explain. You can't have any passengers. And if you look around and you see passengers, it doesn't feel right. When you're on a great team, everyone has a role and everyone does their thing. And I think that's what right now they're looking at is Harper, Benning, go kill penalties, block shots, do that dirty work, and then let Roman Yossi go out 5-on-5 and on the power play and do his thing then.
Yeah, it just bothers me because Harper trying to clear the puck out of his zone. I was sitting like to the side of the goal that the Predators shot at twice in games 3 and 4, and Harper in his own zone trying to get the puck out against that Carolina forecheck was like me in high school trying to dribble through a full court press against a team like Maplewood. Like there was no way that was ever going to happen. And with Harper, man, he just drives me nuts. Just drives me nuts.
Well, Jared, not everyone is Roman Yossi. I don't know if
I know some put Yossi in the game.
Well, you can't have him play every minute, and that's what we were just talking about.
McAvoy plays all the time in Boston.
Yes, he played 26. He's averaging around 26 minutes, right? And Yossi's only 25. So you're really
something absurd
complaining
with McAvoy,
about that
yeah.
1 minute?
Hey,
are you complaining about that 1 minute?
I am. The 1 minute Ben Harper plays. Now, isn't the biggest difference, though, Yossi's games are going to double overtime and McAvoy's aren't?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I'm impressed with the foresight with John Hines to really spread it out because don't get me wrong, it's easy for a coach to be like, just play this guy to death. I don't care. Just go out and play him because it's easy to send him here so that we have fresh legs, so that we, down the stretch. And I think it makes a big difference. And I think it's not always the easy choice for a coach. And so I'll give Hines a ton of credit and the coaching staff for making sure to distribute the minutes a little more even so that you have fresh legs. And I think it's made a difference in the games. I think the Preds are able to compete against what a lot of people would consider a much better team. They've made this series even, and I think that's part of the secret.
Hal Gill, as always, will be on the call, presented by Duncan and their brand new location in Belmead and TriStar Movers. TriStar Moving with 5-star service. Harold, appreciate it. Have a great call tonight, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Enjoy the game. Thank you. Bye, Caroline.
Hey, Hal.
He's one of the best, Hal Gill, here on the program. We will make our predictions. Again, I don't know how to feel. My heart, my head, I don't know how to feel. We will make our official predictions next Predators game day. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
It's Hockey Night in Smashville.
Deflects back for Duchesne. His shot stop and the score!
What are the keys to victory tonight? What's being said in the locker room? Where do the Preds reside in the Central Division standings? Jared Stillman has the latest now. With Preds Game Day on Stillman Company. Brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. This is Smashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Series tied 2-2, game number 5, the money game. Preds and Canes at the PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, starting at 7:05 right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. The Canes took both games in Carolina, but the Preds have all the momentum, which is where we start with the coaches' take. John Hines on momentum in the playoffs.
I think the most important thing is really getting ready for the next game and understanding the areas that you did well to be able to win a game, and then the areas that need to get fixed. And I think that every game's a reset. You've got to make sure you're mentally and physically ready to play the game that is in front of you. You have to have the lessons of the game prior to that, win or lose, good things and bad things. But it's all about the next game and making sure that you are at an emotional level, a physical level, that you're going to give yourself the chance to be able to compete at the level you need to win the game.
And we have seen at times in these Game 5s where the Predators are not at the emotional or mental level that it takes to compete in the game. Most notably, the Stanley Cup Final against Pittsburgh in 2017. Pittsburgh scored a minute 30 into the game, up 3-0 in the first period, won the game 6-0. Carolina will give you their best shot at the start of the game today. Can the Predators handle that and build on the momentum led by their goalie that they had in games 3 or 4? Now, our picks. I am very much struggling between my gut. I have gotten 6 right in a row. The final 2 games of the regular season in which I picked the Preds. And everybody was like, don't pick us. I got those 2 right. And all 4 games in this series I have gotten correct, which is very disconcerting to me because I'm not the best picker in the world, in case people didn't know that. My gut tells me the Predators are going to win this game. That it's going to be one of those Angels in the outfield, Game 5 at Anaheim in 2017 with Freddie Gaudreau on the roster kind of games. My head tells me Carolina is the better team. They're playing at home with their crowd. Jacob Slavin returns to the lineup. And the Canes are, quite frankly, a better team. And they've certainly have played better at home in this series. I am torn as to where I'm going to pick and how I'm going to feel, but Caroline Fenton, you're up first.
I'm going to go with my head on this one, and I'm going to pick the Hurricanes money line. I'm also going to take the over. These have been some very, very high-scoring games, and yes, they've gone into overtime, so of course it's going to make the score higher. Over-under's 5.5. I'm going to take the over on that. I just think whenever you're going back into the Hurricanes arena, whenever you're going to their home ice, they've lost 2. I think it's going to be incredibly I didn't think the Predators were going to be able to win 2 in a row, and I think 3 in a row is even more difficult.
Ian, quickly, your pick.
I'm going to this is tough. I was wrong the other day. I still am leading Carolina. I'll take Carolina 4-1.
I'm taking the Hurricanes today. And I think the reason I'm taking the Hurricanes, I just think they're better. I think they're better, and this is the money game, and this is where and I don't think they're a perfect team. I don't. I certainly do not think they're a perfect team. But I think the Canes get it done. I think that they do score in that initial storm. I'm going to take the Canes 4-1 just like Ian. I just think they're the better team. So I'm going with the Canes today. We shall see. That's going to do it for us. We are out of here. Pre-game starts next. Puck drop right here, 7:05. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. We'll see